Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and we got a fun show on tap for all of y'all tuning in to today's live stream. I'm Mitchell Renz, and coming up on today's show, we're going to be looking at a potential trade between the Raiders and the Cowboys. A former NFL GM believes that the Dallas Cowboys could be interested in pick number 13. We'll talk about it. Darren Waller could potentially retire, so we're going to revisit the Waller-Trey Tucker trade, and I'm going to sit up here and tell you why it is clear to me that Las Vegas has won that deal. Then, since we talked about last week, the Raiders trying to make a deal with the Miami Dolphins, acquiring an extra first-round pick, I have 5 trades that the Silver and Black could do to help get them an extra first-rounder, since it is something that Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco are trying to do at this current moment. Then, the final segment up here on today's show, 10 wide receivers to target in the draft. I got my top 10 guys. I'm not basing this off of like the 10 best receivers in the draft. It is the 10 dudes that I would want the Silver and Black to target in this year's draft. So what do you guys think about this? Will the Raiders try to make a round 1 trade this year? Whether that's trading back up into the back end of round 1, whether that's trading back from 13 or 13 up into the top 4 picks for a quarterback. We talk about trades every single year. We do, and they don't happen very often. So my question to you is yes or no. Put your chips on the table right now, nothing else on the table, and will the Raiders try to make a round 1 trade this year? As always, I will say this. I am not going to be drinking today unless somebody makes me hit the gong. And I ate crow yesterday, and I had a lot of drinks. And if you don't already know, our Friday show is going to be absolutely insane. I even have a special guest that's going to be pulling up to the studio here on Friday. And I got a lot of catching up that I got to do. I am in a deep well of debt. So you want to make sure that you're tuned in for Friday's live show. What's up, Juan Hernandez? I see Derek Kenyon all spamming yes down there. Rich Molina, cheers to you, my man. Yoda Jenkins, 7 on a scale of 10 in terms of confidence. What up, James Morrison? No trade. El Tiburon says no. He's like the Noti Gang god. Dylan Beach says yes. Ed Robbins, yes. Nada. What's up to you, man? And then Rustin Long, all showing love to everyone here in the chat. I also need you to show some love to my guy, Jeremy Chugs, because he's got another question for you that is in regards to the Raiders' wide receiver targets today, especially at the wide receiver room. What is the overall confidence level in the Raiders' room at the receiver position? Scale it from 1 to 10. You got Devontae, you got Jacoby. I think a lot of people are hopeful that Trey Tucker can end up being a solid number 3. After that, though, it's Christian Wilkerson and DJ Turner.
I can't lie. The more I think about this, the less confidence I feel in this room.
Okay.
Because if you think about it, Devontae Adams gets injured. I think the Raiders have a bottom 5, bottom 10 wide receiver room without Devontae.
I think without Devontae Adams, you're looking at a bottom 5 wide receiver room. Now, again, that's just based on what we know right now. Like, I know Jacoby is a top 30 receiver in the league. I believe that Trey Tucker can be a very good...
You think Jacoby's top 30?
In the NFL, I would say so. I mean, I would have to write down all those. Like, to me, he's definitely top 36 is what I mean by that. Like, there's not a single NFL team out there that wouldn't want him to be at least a wide receiver 2 on their team.
I would say wide receiver 3.
Every team would have him as a wide receiver 3, no doubt.
Yeah. I think there's some teams that would like him as a wide receiver 2. Because you think
Sure.
a lot of teams, they're top 2s. Jacoby for a second option, I would say is a mid-tier second option.
See, like, to me, I would like to see what Jacoby can do with a really good quarterback, and that's one thing, like, you could argue he's never really had.
Yeah.
I mean, he's had Mac Jones, and then he had whatever the hell the Raiders had last season. Like, I would like to see him with a legit QB, and I don't know if it's even going to happen this upcoming season, but the other thing that he does is he does add some solid blocking.
Silk, you think so? I don't know.
What?
He said he would be wide receiver 2 on the Texans.
Who?
Jacoby.
No.
Yeah. Because I'm thinking of, like, other, like, really good receiver rooms. Like, he would be the 3rd in Cincinnati behind T. Higgins, Jamar Chase.
Yeah, Jamari's not better than Nico and Stephon Diggs.
You would, for, like, the Dolphins, he would be the number 3 behind Waddle.
Yep.
And Tyreek. Eagles, he would be the 3 behind Devontae and A.J. Brown. I think, and to your point, some teams, he would be a 1-2. If you put him on the Chiefs, I think he's the best receiver on the Chiefs. At least equal with Hollywood Brown.
It depends what type of receiver you want, right? Like Hollywood Brown's the field stretcher. Jacoby Myers is the more reliable target there. So, I do think he fits with Antonio Pierce's mantra of, we want to have all of our players very tough. But if you do want to add a vertical passing attack, then that's not really Jacoby Myers' game.
But, going back to the question, to my point.
Oh, he might be the best receiver on the Chargers.
Yeah. For the Raiders wide receiver room for confidence, I would give it right now an 8. But Devontae is pulling that number up by himself. He is, without Devontae, I would say it's a 5.
If Tucker can take that next step, and if Trey can just be I'm talking reliable receiver. If you told me by the end of this year, Trey Tucker had 35 to 40 catches, and if he can be around 700 yards, that is a monumental season for Trey Tucker.
Oh, that's huge.
If we can get something in that regard from Trey, a few years ago, Nelson Aguilar had 47, over 1,000 yards, and 8 touchdowns.
That's what Tank did last year. Tank Dell had, I think, around 40 catches for 700 yards.
And field stretcher, somebody that when they get the ball in their hands, they're a dynamic player. But, if you do that with Tucker, he's not always going to result in yards for himself. But when you have somebody that is just that much of an athlete, that puts fear in the defensive coordinator's eyes. That also then adds to the extra yardage and extra plays are going to be coming for Zamir White, Michael Mayer, Jacoby, Devontae Adams, all that kind of stuff.
And to answer your question, Girthy Raider, which you can use hashtag Raiders if you want, Mr. Girth. What's a 10 of 10 then? I would say a 10 of 10 for me would be you lose your top guy and you still have a top half of the league wide receiver room. If A.J. Brown went down for the Eagles, yes, the wide receiver room takes a hit, but I'm still okay, Devontae Smith can be a number 1. Jacoby being your number 1, I think it's, especially and kind of tying into this, the Raiders quarterback situation going into next year. If you don't have a quarterback that can really carry you, and Devontae gets hurt, Jacoby's your 1, you're in trouble.
Sure.
If you get a good quarterback and Jacoby's your number 1, he could possibly help pull a little bit, but if you're not sure on the quarterback position and Jacoby's your 1 if Devontae gets hurt, that's some tough sledding.
I mean, obviously, this question is predicated on, all the receivers being healthy. But, to your question of what is a 10 out of 10, a 10 out of 10 for me in confidence that's, could have actually happened is a 100% healthy and Devontae, what we know he could be, Jacoby Myers, and if you could have given me the good version of Hunter Renfrow with a Trey Tucker, combine that then with because the reason why I am also at a 7 and a 10 for the Raiders right now is not because of Jacoby and Devontae are the reason why it's 8. Trey Tucker to me is, honestly, Jacoby and Devontae are the reason why I would say it's a 7. Trey Tucker's why I'm hoping it's an 8. After that, this team has no depth at receiver. That's a cold hard fact. Does anybody trust DJ Turner? No, you don't. Does anybody trust Christian Wilkerson? No, you don't. Do you legitimately trust Trey Tucker? That's a big question right now. I'm hoping he can play good, but I'm not going to sit up here and say I'm guaranteeing he's getting 50 grabs. No, I would say the over-under on Trey Tucker for catches this upcoming season is probably somewhere around, I'd say 32.5 grabs. 32.5 catches for Trey Tucker this year. Type M for more, type L for less. Let me know what you guys are thinking. Got a super chat rolling in here from Josh. The real question, why hasn't Spillane gotten an extension yet? Pause. I will say that to me, the reason why Spillane hasn't gotten an extension yet, probably the same reason why a lot of these other Raiders players haven't gotten an extension yet. They want to prioritize certain players after the draft. So to me, I can make an argument of why Malcolm Kuntz deserves an extension. I can make an argument of why Robert Spillane deserves an extension. Why somebody like a Marcus Epps, Trevon Merrick deserve an extension. Why somebody like Nate Hobbs deserve, to me, all of those players right there, I can legitimately make an entire video around, here are the top 5 reasons why those guys should be the number 1 player to get an extension. But if I'm Las Vegas, I want to wait until after the draft because, free agency, which has been very quiet. Then after the draft, what happens if the Raiders hit on a very good linebacker prospect? What if the Silver and Black end up landing Peyton Wilson in the draft? And, you miss on, I don't know, you miss on edge because you're confident in Malcolm Kuntz. Well, then maybe the priority is to give Kuntz an extension, and then it's like, all right, well, if we're unable to keep Robert Spillane, well, then at least we have Peyton Wilson. To me, you got to see what this team does in the draft. That way you know what position you're the most confident in. That way then after you can allocate your money in certain ways. But I agree with you. If I'm the Raiders, I am giving an extension to Spillane, Malcolm Kuntz before the season starts. Let's go to Dylan. Who was worse head coach for the Raiders, Lane Kiffin or Josh McDaniels? Feels so good AP is our coach. I mean, I also think that John Gruden deserves to be in this conversation. And the only reason why that I say that Gruden deserves to be in it is because of how...
Would you rather twist your ankle or get a kick in the nuts?
Twist my ankle, probably. You didn't say sprain. You said twist.
Sprain.
How bad's the sprain?
A grade 3 high ankle sprain.
That's a Ask Sam question. But, I mean, I'm going to say the answer is Josh McDaniels, because what McDaniels did and then what Antonio Pierce did in the same season, but on top of that, I'm not going to speak on everything that happened with Kiffin because, quite frankly, I didn't talk to any players that were with Lane. I did talk to players that were a part of the whole McDaniels thing. And, when the votes come out that he is by far the worst head coach, and you look at all of the player grades that happened from the NFLPA, that speaks volumes. But then also, if John Gruden would have been able to hit on those draft picks, you're able to change franchises if the Raiders get pick 4, 24, and 27 correct in the first round. That's franchise changing because also in that same draft, you were able to get a Max Crosby. Imagine a world where you hit on your 3 first-rounders and you find Max Crosby. That to me is why I do think Gruden deserves to be in that conversation, but I'll say McDaniels. Let's go to my man, Savage Raider. What up, brother? Also, if you guys want to get those questions, comments on the show, hashtag Raiders or Super Chat like you are seeing here. We do have close to 500 people. If you haven't already, make sure you click that like button. Please do so. We're also going to be doing a $20 Venmo for a 50-50 raffle race, which is going to be at the very, very end of today's show. And if you get in, I'm just going to tell you, we got a special offer on today's episode, which let me answer Savage's, and then I'll go to this one. Haven't really seen anything about Hunter Renfrow. Do you think there's a possible chance of re-signing? I would hope not. And I know there's a lot of people out there that when they think of Hunter Renfrow, they think of Renfrow, the guy that had 100 catches or his first 3 years in the NFL. Renfrow, the past 2 seasons, hold your ears, I don't think it was a top 100 receiver. I know what they paid him. He has had multiple concussions. Off the top of my memory, I'm going to say that Renfro's had at least 3, potentially 4 concussions over the past 2 seasons. Then he's a slot receiver who, let's face it, he's lost a step. He also, when he runs with the ball, he's got a major fumbling problem right now where he's just not nearly as elusive, and he's hanging on to it and still losing it on top of all these other injuries. I know what Renfrow used to be, and the way that I want Raider fans to think of Renfrow is the same way that you thought of Derek Carr. Something happened with Renfrow where, I don't know if it's head injuries, I don't know if it's something else. He's just not the same guy. Now, if you want to bring him back on a 1-year prove-it deal for $2 million, sure, I'll entertain that idea. But at the same time, I would rather the Raiders go out and get another player that, to me, actually has some upside because, I'm sorry, I don't see the upside in Renfrow anymore. He's been really bad for 2 seasons. And we can all say that we love Renfrow because I think every Raider fan alive loves third in Renfrow. But, there is that separation of, okay, this is a guy that I like compared to, all right, I actually want to help the Raiders win, and I don't see Renfrow helping the Raiders win. So today's special is as following. If you send in a $20 Venmo at Mitchell Renz 365, you're going to be entered in for a chance to win the money that comes in, also a chance to win a Raiders Report jersey. Yesterday was one of the most insane shows that I have ever been a part of, and I mean that. You guys know, I don't drink on Mondays. And just David Zahn, Ira Jackson, 93 Navman. I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on of yesterday of all the crazy shenanigans. And hell, I'm in debt up to my eyeballs for Friday's live show. So I wanted to do something a little bit fun, a little bit different. So at the end of today's episode, we are going to do 2 duck races. The first duck race is going to be for some money. The second duck race is for a chance to win a Raiders Report jersey. And if anybody out there like, well, I already have a jersey, well, then we can either...
Well, you can get whatever jersey...
All right, yeah, I'll send you a jersey of your choice to you.
Within reason.
Yeah, within reason. I mean, we have, like I said, we have a inventory of jerseys that we can pick from.
I want a signed, game-worn Charles Woodson jersey.
See, that's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a tough one. So if you want a chance to get in, now's your opportunity to do so, which I'm looking right now. Yesterday was a big day. David's on won $1,600, and I'm looking right now, Venmo, and Charles won $570. That was a lot of winners yesterday on this show.
Good day.
All right, let me see here who's in. I see Phil Crabtree, which that's a new name. Phil, you're in. I see Willie Pfister.
Ron, maybe we do that on Friday.
Justin Gilbert in. What?
Ron says you should give a chance to win a boot so we can do one with you guys.
Do a boot? Okay.
I mean, we need to order some more, but we can definitely get some more boots in and have a couple boot raffles.
Would you guys want some more boot raffles? I mean, we can raffle. We can start doing some more boot raffles. If you guys are down for it, I can absolutely do it. So, Philip Crabtree, Willie Pfister, Justin Gilbert is in. I also see Ultra VAB is in. Let me refresh my phone here real quick. Next name that is in is Rustin Long. James Guevara. OC Raider is in.
Sounds like people want the boots.
Wes Patet is in. Hopefully I pronounced that right. And then I see 93. Oh, shit. 93 Navman. Okay, those are all the names that I have so far. So that means as it stands right now, $20 Venmo.
You know, he
gets you a chance to win $90, and you'll have an opportunity to get yourself a Raiders Report jersey.
He used to be a 93 Nav boy.
And now he's a 93 Nav man. 2 things. Zoom call tomorrow. Yes, I planned on sending the invite after Monday's show. This might surprise a lot of y'all. I was unable to do that. I was not in the best state of mind yesterday, and I swear to all you, and Jeremy can confirm, right before this show went live, I have to send all of those invites tomorrow. So my plan for the Zoom call is I'm going to try to plan it, which you guys can kind of let me know. I was thinking 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, or I was going to do something like at nighttime, which maybe something like, 9 p.m. Eastern time, something like that. Whatever you guys want to do is probably how I'll do it, but I got to send out the emails, and I promise you, I am doing it as soon as today's live show ends. I will send you the Zoom link, and I am going to send you the time and everything of when you can join. So we'll be good. By the way, Myers would be wide receiver 1 at the Chargers right now. That I agree with.
Yeah, that's true.
They also don't have anyone, though.
It would be wide receiver 1 by committee, because I think Josh Palmer's good.
He's all right.
I think he's good. I would put him on the same level of Jacoby Myers-esque.
Yeah, see, I wouldn't. I don't even think they're in the same world.
Really?
Yeah, no. I think Jacoby is by far the superior receiver than Palmer. Like, I'm trying to think of another. Like, Palmer to me, I would say is a top 60 receiver. Jacoby, I would say is no doubt. If you don't think he's top 30, I'd say he's no doubt top 40. Like, to me, Palmer's not in the same breath. Like, he's had some good stints. I've played him in fantasy once or twice.
Yeah.
But, no, I'm not going to say he's Jacoby Myers. But I'm with you, Nab, man. Let's go to my man, Gary Gonzalez. I mean, Gary, I feel like, just lives in the solar eclipse. This is just Gary's life. Here's another fun question. If the Raiders can only draft 1 college, I'll also say this. I love these questions from Gary. All right, and I want y'all to answer this too. We got 600 people here. Here's another fun question. If the Raiders can only draft 1 college for each position, Which colleges are you picking to build a super team? Quarterback.
Oh, quarterback's the toughest.
Quarterback's the toughest.
I mean,
Quarterback's the toughest, no doubt. I would say at wide receiver, I'll probably go Ohio State.
yeah, Ohio State wide receiver.
Tight end is Iowa.
Tight end Iowa. Defensive back, I would go LSU.
There's been a lot of good DBs from LSU, a lot of talent down there. I mean, you could also make the argument like Alabama.
Yeah.
Like Alabama, but though now without Saban, I think it could totally change.
Yeah, I was going to say D-line, I'd probably go Alabama.
I'm nervous of what the defensive line is going to start looking like at Bama because I'd probably say Georgia
Yeah.
for defensive line.
What about linebacker?
Linebacker to me is a fickle mistress
Yeah, that one's tough.
because linebacker can change. This question would be a lot easier before the transfer portal because now people can just transfer over and over and over
Yeah.
again.
Why? We said wide receiver Ohio State.
I mean, if anything, based on
sneaky one,
could you take
offensive line, Notre Dame.
Notre Dame offensive line? I think Michigan would be a good offensive line.
Yeah.
Even a school like Wisconsin.
Linebackers, Penn State, that would be a decent one.
I know Penn State is known as linebacker U.
Wisconsin's a good one for linebacker as well. They've had some good linebackers.
True. Now, Penn State, I know is a fact known as linebacker U.
Mm-hmm.
Running back, where would you go running back?
Running back, I think I might go Texas. Bijan, Jamal Charles. I mean, Roy Williams, Earl Campbell. They had some really good running. I mean, this year coming out, Jonathan Brooks is arguably the best running back in this year's draft.
I think he's the best running back in this year's draft. There's a lot of interesting picks in that bunch.
All time, Miami has some good running backs, too. I just saw somebody say Miami.
Well, all time, it's Miami.
Willis McGahee, Clinton Portis.
Frank Gore.
Which I don't know if it's for sure Miami. I think Texas might even still edge
Still
out
have
Miami. Because you have Jamal Charles, Roy Williams, and Bijan. Three of, I think.
I don't know enough about college football history to probably really truly weigh in on that. But Gary,
Also,
I like these questions, man.
Also, DB, you might be able to go Miami as well, or Florida State, because Miami's had Ed Reed, they had
Jalen Ramsey,
Antral Roll, they had
who?
Was it
Antoine Randall L?
No,
I don't know who you're talking about.
what's his name?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, I said it right. Antral Roll.
Safety?
Yeah,
Okay.
he was good.
I would say right now, if I had to pick quarterback, honestly, I'd probably go USC, but that has more to do with me betting on Cliff. Because Cliff, when he was with OU, produced some good quarterback talent.
You said quarterback, you'd go USC?
If I had to pick right now, I would.
Caleb.
Well, no, I'm saying if I had to pick right now, like going forward, I might go USC just because of that's where Cliff Kingsbury is, and I would be more willing to bet on Cliff than the helmet.
Oh, yeah, Sean Taylor was Miami as well.
Sean Taylor was Miami. Yeah, I mean, the U back in the day, that was a factory. An absolute factory.
But quarterback all time, I don't feel like you can go USC just because I feel like most
Oh,
of the
I don't look at this as all time. I look at it as if I am building my roster starting today with like talent going forward. Like I look at it as, all right, you're only allowed to take quarterbacks from USC going forward. You're only allowed to take running backs from Texas going forward. You're only allowed to take offensive linemen from Notre Dame going forward.
I feel like that totally changes the question then, because then I don't.
All right, let's go to the next one. Gary, I like the hypotheticals, man. Keep them coming. Silver and facts. Mitch, I forgot how old you are, but on behalf of myself and Mr. Wasted Talent, I might send you an honorary AARP membership just so we can being that up. Love the show and keep chugging. See, Wasted's got me by legitimately, I think Wasted is 15 to 16 years older than I am. As I believe that's what Wasted's got me.
I think Wasted's old enough to be my grandpa.
That might be true. That might actually be true.
I think
he almost has you doubled.
I think Wasted in high school, they were wearing leather helmets. Like the ones with no face mask.
Definitely the baggy shorts.
Here comes Wasted talent running on the sideline. 50, 40, 30, 20. He's in. Throw up your Cracker Jacks. Touchdown.
Yeah,
for the seniors.
For the Oakland Seniors, man. That's a throwback, man. That's a throwback. How many people know the Oakland Seniors? That's the real question. All right, y'all. Will the Raiders draft a wide receiver this upcoming season? I believe that they are going to draft at least one because of that depth that we spoke about here earlier on today's show. And one of the things that we're going to be breaking down is the top 10 receivers that the Silver and Black could potentially target. Daniel Caps Keenan is typing his D for draft. Do you think the Raiders right now have 5 receivers? Do you think they only draft one? Or are you like they don't draft any?
I think they 100%. I would put money on it that they draft a receiver.
Draft a receiver?
Yes, at least one.
Okay.
I think they draft one in the first 4 rounds.
Interesting.
At some point. I think they do. There's a lot of really good talent. And I think depending on who falls, I think one of their 7th round picks might be a wide receiver as well.
They do have 2 of them.
Because, I mean, you got to think, half the time, your 7th round pick doesn't even make the team. Nesta Jade Silvera didn't make the team last year. So half the time, or he was off and on the practice squad. You know?
Yeah, I actually don't remember if he made the 53-man, but I know he bounced back and forth.
I don't think he did. But, like, half the time, you're just going for upside. And I think the most upside that you can get trying to add depth to the wide receiver room would be getting a guy in the 7th round as well. Like,
I'll say this.
Also, who's going to be available in round 7 that...
If the Raiders draft a receiver in the first 2 rounds, that tells me that they are legitimately considering, and don't freak out, moving on from either A, Jacoby Myers, who, remember, they just restructured his contract. He's still got 2 years left on his deal. Or Devontae. And if you remember, when the Raiders officially gave Devontae his first contract, they had an out after 2024. So if the Raiders wanted to move on from Tay, they could save $72 million by moving on from him. Yeah. I'm not saying that that's what they're going to do. To me, though, if the Raiders were to take a receiver in round 1 or round 2, my mind would be like, wow, this wide receiver room is absolutely loaded. That other light bulb would go on in my head and be like, what does that mean for Devontae Adams next season? Like, I believe that if they took one, it would be middle to late, but I've been proven wrong before.
I just think there's so much talent, and there could be guys that fall that are round 1, round 2 talented guys at wide receiver that you could get maybe in round 3. Like if somehow Xavier Legette falls in the draft or something like that. Or
can't take him. He played at South Carolina. The last time we took a South Carolina receiver is Brian Edwards, who was reported to have round 1 talent. I had somebody tell me that the other day, and I was like, you guys got to stop hanging on to that stuff. But I hear you, though.
That actually doesn't. Maybe like Troy Franklin, who's a 2nd round talent. You could get him in the 3rd. Or
it comes down to value. And that's what to me, good NFL teams, when they draft, they never reach.
Yeah.
The only position that you reach for in the draft is QB.
I think even though he's been rumored,
unless you were one position away, like a Super Bowl caliber
even though
team.
He's been rumored to go in the 1st, you could maybe get a guy like Keon Coleman in the 2nd round out of Florida State.
I've seen very mixed messages on Keon.
I've seen him going in the 1st round ahead of Brian Thomas, and I've seen him going late in the 2nd.
Yeah, I am very confused about where Keon Coleman could potentially go. What up, Die Hard? Everybody, David Zahn has entered the chat. If you could start spamming Zahn right now. Show my man some love for being a wild one. What up, 93? Graf said David Zahn looks like your twin, Mitch. Wow. I looked and damn, there is a resemblance. I mean, I think David Zahn is a handsome gentleman, but respectively, I don't think Zahn and I look anything alike. Like, Zahn, you can be honest. I've seen David in person. To me, that's just Graf saying, white guy. Zahn kind of has a beard when he wants to grow it out. When I saw Zahn, he had 5 o'clock shadow, but that's white guy, darkish hair, beard. I think Graf and Wasted look more alike than me and Zahn. I don't see it at all. Zahn, you can be honest. I don't see it. Somebody said get Zahn's picture up. That's up to Zahn.
Oh my God, dude, that's funny.
What?
So I just looked on my phone because Twitter popped up some notifications, and I was just checking what it was. The first tweet that popped up was from Martin. You want to know what it said?
I'm worried.
It was a guy it was a meme of a guy, and he's like, and the caption that Martin put with it is, "Why don't birds pee?"
I don't know. Oh, that's true, though. That's fair. I don't know if I've ever seen a bird pee.
Are they real?
What if, which I actually think that this is the case, that they only have one area where things come out. I actually think that that's the case. Maybe I'm wrong and believe in that, but that's a hell of a conversation
Dude,
starter.
I just saw that, and I can't get it out of my head now.
All right, well, how about this then? I want you can't read these out loud, but I want to show you what Abjin sent me. All right, so this is the very first dad joke Abjin sent me yesterday. I can't read the other one. I'll let you read it. He said, "What do you call friends you like to eat with?"
What?
Taste buds. Okay, then read this one, because this one I'm not allowed to say, which it's elite. Oh my goodness. It might be the greatest dad joke I've ever heard, and I can't say it. I mean, come on.
Dude.
That would be a meltdown if we read that one on here. Meltdown.
Oh, bro, you would be on some headlines.
Probably. And I'm not talking about an old Drake song that I love. OC, thanks for the great content and your commitment to excellence.
Schmucks.
I'll say this. I'll always say this, and I love when people watch this show. I love when people support us, and I think we'll call them the Raiders content creators that you should support out there. And I do think that the nation has a lot of amazing people that provide a lot of content. Like, I know, like, Graf, we're going to talk about him here in a little bit. Wasted does an amazing job. I think Hammer does a great job. Sanjeet does a great job.
I mean, Wasted's been doing good stuff for years and years and years and years and years.
I mean, there's some people that say if you go back, you can actually see old caveman. And there's just a figure, and they're like...
When Wasted was first reporting on the Raiders, he was doing it on a typewriter, and he would just send it out to all of his buddies.
Wasted talent, Morse code. And then that's how aggressive Master Raider became.
He said, if you go to the lighthouse and you see 2 lights, that means the Raiders are trading Derek Carr.
Oh, man. And yet he's still here. Nah, but in all honesty, I do think there's a lot of really good content creators, whether it be on YouTube, whether it's on social media. Like, I think the Oos podcast, I think that's what they call it, like Samoan and those guys do a really good job. They're freaking hilarious to me. A lot of good content out there. But believe me when I tell you, it goes a long way, people who watch the show all the time.
Wasted used to and still does send smoke signals.
It would not surprise me. Wasted's an old school dude, but he's a good guy, man. All right, y'all. Coming up here on today's live show, we're going to get into some news and rumors. We're going to talk about a trade involving the Cowboys and Raiders because a former NFL GM believes that Dallas could be interested in the number 13 overall pick. Then I got some trade ideas to help the Silver and Black get an extra round 1 pick. 10 wide receivers to target in the draft. That's all coming up here on today's show. I do want to give a shout out here to the people that did get in our duck race that I don't know if I ended up saying their names. Rick Hand, Stephen O'Kay, Lynn Moss are the last people to get in, which means as it stands right now, Oh, we forgot to do a 93 and Zahn race yesterday, or we said we were going to do it today, right?
Mm-hmm.
And here we are. So the winner of this race simply just gets bragging rights. Or, judging by the age of these ducks, you get to marry wasted. I'm not really sure. 10 seconds to go. But we do have 12 people in right now, which means winner would win $120 of our duck race at the end. I mean, at this point, Zahn's not losing a duck race. That's 7 in a row for Zahn. Nobody can take down Zahn. If I was Zahn, I'd start making bets. We have a side bet from Zahn. Zahn's just on fire from Raspberry, and it's a fact. Dude is hotter than UConn right now. Wrong way. Go get Jayden Daniels, 3 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 starters. So I would do it. Like, again, I'm not trading. Like, in that equation, the 2 starters are a Divine Diablo and a Byron Young. And I know that they're not starters, but that's what I'd be willing to give up. Wow. Ed Robbins! Bang! Here we go again.
Mitch, thanks for everything. Let's make it night. Well, Ed, we're not adding on every day. We're not at before we get out of hand. Time out. We're not gonna do the deal throughout the whole week.
Yeah, So, Ed, that just got started yesterday, and I feel... How about this, Jeremy? Dude. So, Jeremy, I will admit, Jeremy did grab me a beer in case I wanted to, like, get rid of 1 or 2 before the show started. Or before our Friday show started. I don't drink during the week. I really try not to. Just because I know Fridays when I do this show, I get shellacked. Right? It's just trying to lose a little bit of weight myself. Here's the thing, though. Somebody said an all-week special. I just can't do the all-week special. It would be very bad for me.
Yeah.
Because this would happen every day. Like, I can remember back in the old school days when I first started this show. But when I first started this show, we would do, I'm not even kidding you, it was like $5, $10 fireball shots, $20 beer bongs, and I would leave the show shellacked. But that's, over time we've had to increase it just because of how many people do crazy shit like Ed here. Ed, I will say this, though. I am going to add you another one for our bang race for the month of April. And, Ed, I will do 1 beer bong today for you. But it does not count, it counts as me getting rid of 1 for Friday. It's not adding an extra one. I appreciate it. Believe me, I do. I just got to set boundaries, man. What up, Wrong Way? Yeah, this is the Jayden Daniels, 3 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 starters. Thank you. Which, again, I don't know... The real question is, are the Raiders or any team out there going to legitimately... Is a team going to trade in the top 3 picks? Right? Because we could sit up here and just keep saying over and over and over again what we would give up. If it was 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and if it was Divine Diablo, and then let's say, if you want another starter, let's say Divine Diablo and... I could say Jacoby Myers. Let's do that. Jacoby Myers, Divine Diablo, 3 firsts, 2 seconds, and that gets you up to pick number 3 with the New England Patriots. Are you doing that? It's a lot. I would do it still, and I know it scares people, but to me, if that guy ends up being your franchise quarterback, it's worth it all. If you could guarantee me right now that I'm able to find a top 10 quarterback in this year's draft, I'd give up, I'm not kidding you, every single one of my draft picks. I would, because you got to be able to find a QB. If you don't find a QB, you're just playing in this mediocre world that the Raiders have been playing in for the past 5-6 seasons. Been very mediocre. James.
Wasted talent messages via carrier pigeons. Yeah. Don't F with this guy. It's Mr. James Lillard. Thank you for the super chat. Rex Randall Chugs is wasted, ya daddy. Where's your mama and daddy? No. Look at me. I'm your daddy now.
I mean, I will say, there's one thing that really sticks out to me that I know for a fact wasted is not your dad. And you're Jewish. It's obviously the fact that he's not Jewish and you are.
Yeah.
Besides that, it's pretty close.
I can see it.
Let's go to Navman. How about a bang-only duck race?
That would be wild, though, because that means Wasted would have had me in his 60s. So.
What do you mean a bang-only duck race? Like, if you bang on the show, we just do a duck race for that?
I mean, we've done $100 Venmo duck, like $100 50-50 duck races. But usually with those, it in more crazy shows, and
correct.
It'll be like maybe 5 or 6 people.
Like, to me, I know that Navman just found this YouTube channel, and he's, like, itching to get wild. Now, man, I'm telling you right now, during the regular season, and even, like, during the NFL draft, you're going to be going nuts. You're going to be going nuts. Like, yesterday was an insane show.
We'll have to keep Sam away from him.
Correct. Which also means I am down to 17 beer bongs for Friday. Feeling pretty good. Before we get into this first segment, again, today's special $20 Venmo gets you in both our 50-50 raffle and a chance to win a Raiders Report jersey. So if you want a chance to get in, at Mitchell Renz 365 is my Venmo, and we're going to do 2 races at the very, very end of today's show.
We're going to read this one, and then we'll go on with our first segment.
Cool.
Millie Williams. Bears only have 4 total picks. They have to trade back round 2 and 3 picks, plus Jacoby Myers for 9, then 9 and 13, plus next year's first to whoever wants it for Jayden Daniels.
I don't think that that's true, what you're saying. I'm pretty sure they have 6 picks. They only have 4? Wow. So they have, round 4, round 3, and then 2 first-round picks. It's definitely interesting, but to me, if they're going to trade anything... All right, so you're saying trade back?
I don't think 2, 3, and Jacoby Myers is enough to go up to 9.
It's not even close. I don't think your first-round pick and your second-round pick is enough to get up to 9. I think if it was first, second, and Jacoby, then maybe they would entertain it. But even that, I don't know if they would.
I think your trade would be to get up to there if they want Jacoby Myers, which I don't know if they do because they just traded for Keenan Allen.
Correct.
As well. So I think you're more likely.
Again, off the top of my head, I don't know what the Bears' biggest needs are.
I think you're more likely second and third round this year, your first next year, plus Byron Young to get up to 9. But that's just I know they need some defensive line help, defensive tackle help.
I don't think you'd have to throw in a first-round pick for next year. I mean, to go 13 to 9, I think
I'm saying to keep 13.
Oh.
Your first next year, second and third this year, plus a Byron Young and maybe Divine Diop or like another player.
I mean, if you're not giving them a first-round pick this year,
maybe.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to cost. It probably does. It probably does cost you a first-round pick next year, your second, your third this year, and then 2 players of a Divine Diablo, Byron Young. Like, again, when you think about draft picks down the road, the way that NFL teams evaluate draft picks is like a first-round pick this year has got the most value, right? A second-round pick this year is worth just as much as a first-round pick next year in terms of the NFL trade value chart. Obviously, it doesn't always work based on different teams because if the Kansas City Chiefs offer you a 2025 first-round pick, if I'm looking at that as saying, at best, I'm getting pick 25.
Yeah.
So it always changes. Let's go to Phil. Not a new name. I'm the Vegas guy that bought a full-size candy bar because of y'all. This is $25 duck race to get you boys right. All right, so I do remember the candy bar.
I don't.
I don't remember $25 duck race.
I don't remember the candy. Like, what?
It was a giant candy bar. I mean, that's...
Wait, what? We made him get a giant candy bar?
I mean, I remember I ran into a Raiders fan one time, and they had a... Like, it was literally like this humongous candy bar. Like, that's what I'm thinking of. And maybe I'm crazy. Phil, I don't know.
But it says they bought a full-size candy bar because of us.
A full-size candy bar. See, now I'm confused. Like I said, I ran into a Raider fan one time, and they legitimately had this, like, humongous candy bar on them. And I just, like, that's what I remember. Yeah, I don't know. Zahn, you and me both, man. I'm still waiting on it, too. Fellas, if we trade her back with Philly to, I believe, 22, do you think we pick up another second or third? Would you do it? So, James, I actually did a show on this probably 2 weeks ago, and one of the trades that I put together for the Raiders was the idea of us trading back up to pick 22 to go land a quarterback. I don't really see the Raiders trading back from 13. Like, the only way I would say the Raiders trade back from 13 is if Jayden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr. are both off the board before pick 12, which maybe could happen. It might. Like, there's some people that think that Penix could go in the top 10. To me, though, like, that's the only way that the Raiders would end up trading back. And then for Philly, why are they trading up necessarily? I mean, to go from 22 to 13, you would get, I would hope if that's the Raiders, you'd get a first-round pick in next year's draft. But, yeah, the cost off the top of my head is probably closer to a second and a third-round pick. You probably get a second, a third on top of your swapping firsts.
Yeah.
All right, y'all, let's get into today's live show. We got close to 700 people here in the building. If you haven't already, make sure you click that like button. We're going to talk about some crazy trades today, so be on the lookout for that. On top, I am going to say it over and over again. The Raiders, to me, clearly won the Darren Waller trade, and if you agree with that, smash that like button. But coming up here, we got trade ideas, wide receivers to target, and we're going to be trashing Darren Waller here just a little bit. That's all coming up here on today's show. Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, could the Silver and Black trade back with the Dallas Cowboys? A former NFL GM believes that the Dallas Cowboys could be interested in pick 13 for a certain player. Then, Darren Waller, you remember him? I know I do. The Silver and Black traded him away to the New York Giants, and could he potentially be contemplating retirement? That's all coming up here on today's show. If you don't know, I am now finding out that we are in an April sub-battle with our Bears channel, Bears Now, and we are down. And I actually didn't know about it. I found out today, which we're 9 days in. My point is, I want to make an electric comeback. I'm going to do this April sub-battle up through the NFL draft, and I want to make sure that we take down our Bears channel. So if you could, and if you hate losing like me, hit that subscribe button, send this to all your Raiders fans, and say, you know what, you might not like Mitch, but I don't like to lose. Nobody likes to lose. Subscribe for Raiders videos. Subscribe so we don't lose our April sub-battle against Bears Now. So let's get in here to the latest going on around the Cowboys, this trade, and what a former NFL GM believes, could potentially happen, because I know that there's always a lot of speculation about what the NFL draft can bring, and we talk about all the time. Could the Raiders trade up to go get a quarterback? Could the Raiders trade back? Think about how much we talked about in the previous years of the Silver and Black potentially trading back, right? We talk about it all the time. Then you got a team like the Dallas Cowboys where Jerry Jones, you never know what he's going to do. That's a cold, hard fact. But former NFL GM Rick Spielman thinks that the Dallas Cowboys should trade up to pick number 13. That way they are able to go out and get a left tackle to replace Tyron Smith. If you don't know, Tyron Smith ended up signing a deal with the New York Jets. The Cowboys are in this interesting spot right now where they don't know if they want to be able to go out and pay Dak Prescott. He's got 1 year left on his deal. And if you are Dallas and you want to be able to figure out what you're going to do with Prescott, don't you think that you should make sure that you have a legitimate left tackle there? I understand that, and I agree with that. And the Raiders were listed as the top trade-up destinations for multiple reasons, but the player that was listed for the Cowboys, according to Spielman from CBS, was that Dallas apparently really likes Olu Fashanu. And I know that some of y'all are probably thinking, well, Mitch, Olu's an offensive tackle. Why wouldn't the Raiders take him at pick 13? I mean, would the Raiders take a left tackle? It's a question that needs to be had out there. I will say this. I know why the Raiders would trade back to number 24. The reasons are as follows. The only way under the sun that the Raiders are swapping pick 24 and pick 13, and obviously there's going to be a little bit more that you would get. To me, Jayden Daniels got to have already been taken. Michael Penix Jr. already have to be gone. If both of those quarterbacks are off the board, I could see the Raiders then sitting here going, all right, I could understand an idea of trading back and trying to accumulate some more picks. Could the Raiders stockpile more? Like Telesco has been a believer in years past that, hey, you got to be able to stockpile through the draft, build through the draft. We see NFL teams believe that all the time. Also, it could be a reason where maybe the Raiders are targeting another quarterback in the draft. Like, it's been reported that Telesco had some interest in Bo Nix. I'm very confident that Nix is going to be available at 24. I wouldn't take him there, but it could be a reason of why the Raiders would decide to trade back. I will say, I always say shame on people. If you're going to throw out a report or if you're going to say, hey, the Cowboys could potentially trade up to 13 with the Raiders, I'll always say shame on people for not putting out a trade. So the trade that you're going to see is not a trade that I'm saying I would do. It's not a trade that I'm saying CBS reported. It's not a deal that Rick Spielman put together. This is simply based on the trade value chart of what the projected cost it would be for Dallas to go up to pick number 13. So the Cowboys get pick 13, and the Raiders' fourth-round pick 112. In return, the Raiders get pick 24, an extra second-round pick at 56, and then an extra third-round pick at 87. So if you're the Silver and Black, and if you have that much draft capital, I mean, your picks would be 24, 44, 56, and 87. That's 4 solid picks that you'd be able to build some pretty strong core players to your overall roster. So based on this projected trade cost, if the Cowboys wanted to go up to 13 to get a left tackle like Olu Fashanu, would you do it? Would you make this trade? And say yes, say no. This is going to be the pinned comment on today's show. Scroll on down, give me your answer, because my answer around whether or not the Raiders should make this trade is, to me, I'm going to try to play a little chess compared to checkers. I'm going to say no. I wouldn't make that trade. Do I think it's a good value deal for the Raiders based on the idea that Jayden Daniels and based on Michael Penix Jr. being gone? Yes. The way that I would look at it, though, is that I'd say, okay, Dallas, fair enough. Our top 2 quarterbacks that we wanted to draft, they're no longer available. If this is what you're going to do, I want an extra first-round pick in the 2025 NFL draft. That way I can use that extra draft pick. That way I can have an extra pick because I'm very confident the Raiders, let's face it, the Raiders aren't going to be picking very high in next year's draft. When I say that, they're not going to have a top 10 pick. So then if you can use Dallas's pick, and then you can use the Raiders' pick, then you might be able to go up and trade up for a quarterback. I'll also say the reason why I'm not going to do that other deal by Dallas is because if both Daniels and Penix are gone, there is not another quarterback that the Las Vegas Raiders should draft this year in the first 2 rounds. I'm not taking Bo Nix in the first 2 rounds. I'm not taking J.J. McCarthy, though. I think J.J. is gone early on. I'm not taking a Spencer Rattler. I'm not taking a Jordan Travis. There's not another quarterback that I am taking in the first 2 rounds of the NFL draft if I'm the Silver and Black. So what would I do? I would get that extra 2025 first-round pick, and I would start evaluating quarterbacks in next year's draft. I don't know who's going to be the top QB, and it changes year in and year out. But there's some pretty interesting names to this list. I mean, Carson Beck, Shedeur Sanders, Cameron Ward. I love me some Cameron Ward. Jalen Milroe, he got better and better and better. So if I was Las Vegas, I would say, okay, I'm going to roll with Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew. I'm going to use that extra first-round pick, and then I'm going to go out and try to get my franchise guy in next year's draft. So coming up here, the trade that the Raiders should make with the Cowboys. If it's draft day, because this trade that we're even talking about, let's face it, it's only happening on draft day. The Raiders would never trade back with Dallas right now for the Cowboys to go up to pick 13, nor would the Cowboys do it right now. So the only way that this happens is on draft night. And if that's the deal that Dallas offered me, I'd say, cool, hang on, here's my counter offer. We'll get to that, and we'll talk about Darren Waller here in just a moment. But I do want to give a shout-out to today's sponsor, Prize Picks. And Mitch, there's no more NFL season. What do I do? Mitch, there's no more college basketball. What do I do? I'm going to show you all some golf picks today. Yeah, golf. That's coming from me. And if you want to get started with the #1 daily fantasy sports app out there, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Just make sure that you use code CLNS on top of that. But you can win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and MLB entry today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks, submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types are what make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. So I'll be real with y'all. I'm not much of a golfer, but I asked one of our golfer people here at Chat Sports, and I said, make me some money, because quite frankly, I don't care what the sport is. If you're putting a little bit of money in my pocket, I'm all in. So Phil Mickelson, less than 2.5 birdie or better. And then Victor Hovland, give me the more on him. My Chat Sports guys have put money in my pocket before, and I bet that they're going to put some money in my pocket again. So if you want to go, prizepicks.com/CLNS. Prize Picks is simple. You pick more or less than on 2 to 6 players, stat projections, and watch the winnings roll in. Get started now, if you haven't already, at prizepicks.com/CLNS and get a first-time deposit match of $100. Prizepicks.com/CLNX. Pick more, pick less. It's really that easy. Shout out to today's sponsor, and shout out to our Chat Sports team for, putting some extra money in my pocket, putting a little extra money in y'all's pocket as well. So the trade that I would ask for if I am the Las Vegas Raiders is as followed. I am going to ask for your first-round pick in next year's draft, okay? That's what I want. I want a first-round pick in next year's draft, and I'll also still give you a 4th-round pick. So, yes, you go from 24 to 13. I get it. To not have anything else in this year's draft would concern me a little bit. However, though, if we are able to get that 2025 first, and let's also face this, if the Cowboys, if they were to lose Dak, that might be a top 10 pick. If Dak plays the whole season, I'd say you're probably looking somewhere in the picks from 20 to 25 would be where if I was a betting man, where I guess it could be. So if you're the Las Vegas Raiders here, you'd have a potential to have 2 first-round picks that could help you then potentially, again, move up into the first round and go get your guy. Yeah, you don't have that 4th-round pick, it hurts. But the fact that Antonio Pierce and Tom Telesco just got hired, the other reason why I'd be confident in doing this is because, let's face it, they're not going to lose their job after year 1. And if you know that you're not going to lose your job after year 1, and you want to keep that job security even for a little bit of extra longer, if I was Telesco and AP, I'd be like, well, I just drafted my franchise quarterback in 2025. You got to let me see what he's got. It's an interesting timeline, no doubt. But the reason why I would do this trade is because the Raiders aren't going to have a top 16 pick in 2025. I'm confident to say that because this year the Raiders are picking 13. Quarterback play's not going to be worse. There's just no way that I could see Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell being as bad as a rookie Aiden, Jimmy Garoppolo, Brian Hoyer. I also anticipate that this defense, now with Christian Wilkins, is going to take a step forward. So to me, the Raiders are going to be somewhere around that 8, 9, 10 win slot. That's where I project them to be based on what I know right now. That is not a top 16 pick. So if you told me right now the Raiders have pick 17, and then if the Cowboys have a healthy Dak Prescott, you're probably in the mid-20s, cool. If that goes down with that team, new defensive coordinator, there's a lot of opportunity for the Raiders to have a much better pick than what a lot of people think. But 2 first-rounders helps you trade up for a franchise quarterback. And if you're trying to get a first-round pick now, which the Raiders have already called the Miami Dolphins and asking for an extra first-round pick. If you know they're trying to do it now, why wouldn't they try to do it again next year if you miss on Jayden Daniels and Michael Penix Jr.? Just something to think about. Coming up here, is Darren Waller retiring? the former Raiders tight end was traded to the New York Giants, and there was a lot, and I mean a lot of speculation around Waller potentially retiring, hell, even before the NFL draft. Before I get into the latest around that story, I do got to give a shout out to our Bang Gang. Yesterday's show was insanity. That's the only one-word reaction I can give, and there was a lot of people that banged. There's a lot of people that were showing love on the stream. We had a hell of a time. So shout out to Nabman, Rebel, Josh Melton, JC Does It, Common Raider, Mr. Zahn, Ira Jackson, Yoda Jenkins, Ed Robbins, who banged again today, Jamari Murray, Mr. Scheffler, Van Thrick, all banged on yesterday's show, which has put me in a debt, and I have to pay my debt on Friday, and I might be able to have a few beers throughout the course of the week. But I know right now my debt is I owe 17 beer bongs by the end of Friday's show. Luckily, I'm going to have a little bit of help. We got a special guest coming in the studio on Friday. Graphic Raider will be here at Chat Sports, and he's going to be hanging out with Jeremy Chugs and I, and we're going to be slamming some drinks, answering some questions. So if you enjoy our show, usually on Friday, basically going to be the exact same thing, a little bit more questions. Like I want a little bit more back and forth with all of us, and Graf's going to be here knocking back some drinks himself. So subscribe, tune in, and be ready to have some fun. 4 p.m. Eastern Time Friday with Graphic Raider. Let's get into the latest here around Darren Waller and is he retiring? If you don't know this story, Waller has been contemplating retirement from the National Football League due to the injuries that he's been dealing with since his time back with the Silver and Black. He's missed 19 games the past 3 seasons dealing with hamstring, SI joint problems, which is kind of going up the side of your hip. And the problem with this, or the interesting part of this, is Waller, to my knowledge, does have 3 years left on his deal. I do believe that the Giants gave him an extra void year, which lowered his overall salary cap last season. But, like, he was once the highest paid tight end in the National Football League. He was once a player that had over 100 catches. But if Waller's not committed, we already know that song and dance. He's not playing. And this is what Waller recently said about retirement. I have to make a decision at some point. You have to be 100% bought in for the grind, and I have to make sure I am bringing that to the table, or it's a disservice to the guys I am suiting up with. I also want to give the team time where whichever way I go, they can prepare for next season. So it's a little bit of a difficult decision, but here we are. The way that I would say this is if you're contemplating letting, it's basically like $20, $30 million go because you would rather retire, that to me already tells me that you're not 100% bought in. And to be quite frank, I don't think Darren Waller's been 100% bought in since he got that contract extension. That guy got paid, and we can call it what it is. He got lazy, he got out of shape, and he wanted to focus on other things. But what's interesting is this trade. And remember, when the Raiders made this trade, they got a 2023 third-round pick, which ended up being Trey Tucker at wide receiver. The Giants got Waller. I sat up here on the show, and I was like, man, I think that they could have gotten more. We'll see what ends up happening. Now, based on all these rumors, reports going on around Waller, and I think every Raider fan sitting here going, I'm not surprised that he's thinking about retiring, because I know as soon as I saw the report, I'm like, I'm not surprised at all. My take is the Raiders, you can now clearly say, the Raiders won the Darren Waller trade. And I don't even think it's arguable at this point, because I don't see how anybody could argue for somebody that's willing to retire right now. Yeah, you got him for 1 year, but you didn't give up a third-round pick to get Darren Waller for 1 year. You gave up a third-round pick to have Darren Waller help Daniel Jones figure out if he's going to be the franchise quarterback or not. You still don't know if that's the case. So to me, the Raiders clearly won this deal. And if you're in agreement with me, which, believe me, I know not everybody that watches this show agrees with me. Hell, I don't want you to agree with me every time. That makes for very boring back and forth. It makes for a very boring conversation. But if you believe that the Las Vegas Raiders won the Darren Waller trade, hell, let's call it the Trey Tucker trade at this point, I want you to click that like button, because if you don't believe it at this point, I don't know. Maybe you're a closet Giants fan. Maybe you're a closet Saints fan. Or maybe you just don't like Trey Tucker. But it is clear to me that the Raiders won this deal. And you know what? I'm going to give you 5 reasons why they won this deal. The first one is Waller, since he got paid, has been unmotivated. And when you saw how great Waller was before his payday, I mean, he was one of my favorite Raiders, and I said it multiple times. He was one of my favorite players on this team because of his dedication and everything that he wanted to do. As soon as he got paid, all the injuries started popping up left and right. It was headaches. It was more about him being a headache off the field than what he was doing on the field, because when he was on the field, there was at times where he was pretty damn good. The other thing was the injuries, they just started to pile up. He had a hammy. He had the SI joint problem. There was even some speculation from teammates being like, I don't know if he's given 110%. Usually when you're not staying in that tip-top shape, that's when the injuries start to creep up on you a little bit. And the injuries that he had were usually, and again, everything's different, the soft tissue injuries, when you start seeing players get that, it's usually due with poor conditioning or them not being in shape that they once previously were in. Another one is teammates did question his dedication. Like, that's been a very well-documented story. I can't tell you which personal Raiders player told me that they questioned his dedication, but I know this. If I told y'all which player questioned his dedication, every single Raiders fan watching the show would go, yep, I questioned his dedication as well. Then he got more focused on his rap career. I saw a picture it was a few days ago of Graf with like his headphones in a garbage can. And like, when you think about the fact that Waller dropped a record the same night that the Raiders blew a 16-3 lead with 2 minutes left against the Rams on Thursday Night Football, like, that light bulbs are just going off that he knows that people are going to be on social media, but yet he's still going to drop his rap album because he cares more about that rap album than he did winning football games. And then the other reason is this: Tucker is cheaper, and he's going to produce more. I am willing to bet each and every one of y'all that at the moment that deal went down, so 2023, you can count the 2023 stats, which I'm about to show you here in a second, and you can go from 2023 to the end of Waller's contract. So let's call it 2023 to 2027. I am going to sit up here and I am guaranteeing you that Trey Tucker, during that time, is going to have better numbers, going to make a bigger impact for his football team, going to be less of a headache, and way, way cheaper. All of those reasons is why the Las Vegas Raiders won the Darren Waller trade, and I don't even think it's arguable at this point. I was a little bit concerned that if Waller was able to stay healthy, but then again, I sat up here on this show, I sat up on a Giant stream before, and I said, you're going to love Darren Waller during the offseason. Soon as it becomes the regular season, headache. What happened? Headache. Now we're in the offseason, and now he's even becoming another little bit of a headache. Darren Waller, sorry. Giants fans, sorry, you lost the trade. If you made it this far in the video and you want to give me a follow on social media, remember, I am at Mitchell Renz 365, literally everywhere. So if you're watching this live show, to the 750 people that are tuned in right now, pull up to me on social media. And remember, we go live every single Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 p.m. Pacific. And if breaking news happens, I bet you we're going to be one of the first people live here on YouTube. All right, Jeremy, let's have a little bit of fun here. So since Zahn went nuclear yesterday and
absolutely
has been nuclear for basically 5 years, one of the things that I wanted to be able to do today, and for those that do not know, we are giving away a Raiders Report jersey, okay? And everybody that is in the 50-50 raffle, you are also in for a chance to win the Raiders Report jersey. However, this is something that Zahn would like to do, and it's give somebody an opportunity to get it for free. I know that not everybody can send in a Venmo. I know that not everybody can super chat. So what I try to do on this show is give people the opportunity to at least have an opportunity to win that Raiders Report jersey, right? So one of the things that we're going to do today is somebody that spams on the most. And Chugs, you can pick the name here. We're going to put that person in the final race for the Raiders Report jersey. So they're not obviously going to be in for a chance to win the money for Venmo, but they are going to be in for a chance to win the Raiders Report jersey. So whoever you think, Chugs, is spamming Zahn the most, you let me know.
I'm looking.
Whoever spams it the most. I mean, there's a lot of people in there. I see.
I think for this one, I've seen his name so much that I can't not say it.
Okay.
Wesley Pettit.
Wesley Pettit.
Wesley space Pettet.
Okay. So that means, Wesley, for you, you're getting an extra entry. Because Wesley does have an entry for the duck race already. So
Okay.
that means Wesley, Chugs picked it. He doesn't know the list here that I got. That means, Wesley, you're going to have 2 names in for a chance to win the Raiders Report jersey.
And we might have another opportunity for you to spam and get a free entry as well.
Wink, wink, nudge, 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 nudge. All right, let me change my jersey here real quick.
Got it.
And then
Going back to what Mitch was talking about just a second ago in the segment, I mean, looking at the trade now, Trey Tucker, a young receiver with a lot of upside, and the Giants got 8 games from Darren Waller. I think easy win for the Raiders. Plus, you get Waller's contract off the books. Oh no, I was just saying not 8, 9 games or whatever. But yeah, I mean, you also get his contract off the books. Marshall was loving the trade at first, and then now, I think Marshall's come around. I think he's more on our side of not loving the trade for Darren Waller. I think so.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, again, we know what Darren Waller can be, and that's honestly sometimes the most frustrating part about it. You're like, this guy could be the best tight end in the NFL. He could be. And at one time, hell, I might have made the argument that him and Travis Kelce were right there. Like, that year he had 107 catches. The year before he had 90. I mean, he was uncoverable. You couldn't guard him. Yeah. 6'6", 250 pounds. For him, the way that he runs. I mean, I've run into Waller 3 times in Vegas. Funny enough, all 3 in Resorts World. And when you see how big he is, I mean, he's just a massive, massive human being. And then you think how well he runs. You just add it all in there, man. I wish that he could have stayed healthy. I wish that he would have stayed on the Raiders. Like, a healthy Waller on the Raiders is what I would have rather. But now seeing everything, the Raiders made the right call.
Gary Gons, here's another one. Which round are you keeping to save and eliminating the rest that the Raiders have drafted players 1 to 7, #draft related? I mean, this answer I would say is easy.
Yeah.
Round 4.
Wait, which one are you saving?
Yeah, like out of all the past years, if you could only take one round in which the Raiders have drafted players, which round would it be?
Oh, well, yeah. The only round you're keeping is round 4.
I mean, the Raiders made it easy with shitting the bed on the first round picks.
I mean, their 4th round has been Max Crosby, Dylan Parham, Amik Robertson, John Simpson. I'm trying to think who the other 4th round picks were.
But I mean,
that's all that's coming to my mind right now. But
regardless,
that right there, that's the best Raiders draft picks. The best.
Yeah.
Like, Nate Hobbs has been solid, but Max Crosby, round 4, is the only answer here. I mean, unless this question is, which round are you keeping to save and eliminating the rest? I mean,
I'm keeping round 4.
If it's based on what has already happened, yeah.
Yeah.
If it's not,
round 1.
then you keep round 1.
Chef.
Mr. Scheffler. We tried to pre-warn Marshall.
You can still get pregnant from pre-warn.
All right, here's my other question to this. I think it's still round 4. Technically, though, if you got rid of all the other picks, you also don't have Devontae Adams because you traded the 1st and the 2nd.
Yeah.
It's still Max. We tried to pre-warn Marshall. He was so happy about the trade.
You can still get pregnant from pre-warn.
Brutal. I found out you can still get pregnant from pre-warn, and I also found out today that you can block people on Venmo. If you would have told me that somebody would block me on Venmo, I don't know if I'd believe him. I didn't know it was even possible. I didn't even know. Though the reasoning was legit. Let's go to 93 Nab, man. I can appreciate the sobriety issues with Darren Waller. However, let's speak on Max, who has been in similar position and chooses his passion to the Shield over anything else but his family. Love Darren on his comeback, but is there anything more to this?
No, that's actually how he finishes.
Oh.
...
I'll always say that, life can take people in a lot of different directions, right? I've had the opportunity to speak with Max multiple times, and, to him, sobriety is a very important day for him. March 14th is a day that is very important to him in general, and I do think that people can, you can kind of decide where your life is going to go, and Max decided that he wants to concentrate on football, family, and realistically himself, right? To get the best out of himself. And I'm not, for what Waller had to overcome, I've never had a sobriety issue, so I'm not going to sit up here and really talk about it. Don't get me wrong, there's days where we get up here, we drink a shit ton of beers, but I've never had the feeling of man, I really need an alcoholic drink, or man, I really need a pain pill or something like that. The only time that I can legitimately say that I've ever been, this is me being very honest with y'all, when I was in high school, when I tore my ACL, I was on Percocet. And I wasn't allowed to take Percocet when I went back to high school. So, they were like, you have to cut it cold turkey. And I've told this story, I think, once or twice on the show from the 5 years I've been doing this. But I was sitting in my math class, and I had a hoodie on, and I can remember how much I was drenched in sweat. So much where my teacher looked at me, and he's like, "Are you okay?" And I told him, I was like, "I don't know what's happening to me right now, but I feel awful." Because I was just drenched in sweat, and it was 8 o'clock in the morning, and it was my first day back to high school after probably 2.5 weeks after tearing my ACL, and I went down to the nurse, and I'm like, "I don't know what's wrong with me." And she's like, "Were you on any drug medication?" I was like, "I was taking Percocet." She's like, "Are you taking them now?" And I said, "No." And she's like, "That's the problem." And literally, that's what happened. It took me a week and a half to get off it, and for people, if you do that all the time, which sometimes people don't talk about that with NFL players, some of the players that I've talked to in the past are like, "Yeah, dude, they need to legalize marijuana because marijuana is a lot healthier than all these drug medicines." And, if you're a young player, what happens if you are in high school or if you're in college and you're trying to chase a dream and get into the NFL, but you got a lingering injury, and the only way that you can get through it is by taking some pain meds? I get that. So,
Yeah.
But, back to the whole conversation here. I think as an adult, you have the opportunity to pick which way you want your career path to go. Max chose the right way, and I'm not going to say Waller chose the wrong way for his personal life because he got married. As long as he's living in a happy marriage, and maybe his rap career does take off. I don't think that it does, but Max is clearly doing things the right way, and I think people could benefit from him, though Waller also has done a lot of amazing things in the community to help young teens, young people in general, deal with their sobriety issues. So I think both are something. This is interesting. Here's a trivia question for you. Do you think that Iowa, South Carolina, or UConn and Purdue had more views?
Oh, Iowa, South Carolina.
Okay.
Easy.
What do you guys think?
And it's because the reason is because there's actual storylines and stuff going year to year in women's college basketball, which maybe the product, you can say what you want about it, but with Caitlin Clark and that whole storyline, they actually have stuff where in college, because in women's college basketball, you have to be 22 to enter the WNBA. So none of these girls are leaving early, really. They're seniors by the time they go to the WNBA. So the fan bases have had time to rally around these people. Where men's college basketball, you have guys leaving after 1 year, going to the transfer portal, going somewhere else. Half the time, you don't even know who's on your team until right before the year starts. So I could easily, and also I told you yesterday, I thought this was one of the worst men's March Madnesses I've ever seen. With the amount of close games and buzzer beaters and stuff going on, it just wasn't it.
I don't disagree with that at all. I'll also say it was a privilege to watch UConn play because they might go down in history as the greatest men's college basketball team that we've seen in the last 20, 30 years. I'm not going to speak on the old UCLA teams because I don't really remember all them. But when you talk about what UConn, this was the most dominant performance a team has ever had in March Madness.
I think, yes, they could go down as one of the most dominant teams in college basketball history. Best, I don't think so.
Again, I don't know enough about it, but if you look at just the numbers behind it, they had the highest point differential, so 140 points. Next closest was 129. And I think what also makes UConn great is they're a team that they're not loaded with tons of NBA talent. And they lost some NBA talent. Hell, they lost their best player last year in, what was his name, Hawkins or something like that.
Yeah.
And then they just retooled everything. And watching them play, it reminded me of like when you watch, it kind of reminded me when you watch like a European basketball team that's played together for a really long time, and the way that they play, they're just like super, very well gelled together compared to a team that's just like,
yeah,
we're going to figure it out.
And I think Gatlin Gunn says it right. I mean, going back, it's hard-pressed to say those UCLA teams with John
agree.
Wooden aren't the most dominant as well. But, like,
yep.
I don't know. But
I'm
Chappie
saying,
said,
and
whoa,
recent memory.
Pump the brakes, Chugs. It was a great men's NCAA tournament. I mean, for the game, the Final Four sucked. UConn dominated both of their games. Purdue dominated against NC State.
I don't disagree.
In a final game where the champion wins by, I mean, I feel like you can't say it was a great tournament when the winner wins the last game by 16 points.
I can only remember one buzzer beater the entire tournament.
Yeah.
One buzzer beater. And it happened against Houston, and Houston won that game. There was the buzzer beater sent it
to overtime.
Overtime, and Houston ended up winning.
Yeah.
That's what March Madness is about to me. I want a bunch of upsets. I want buzzer beaters, and both 1 seeds ended up making it. Though I did really enjoy the matchup last night between Edey and Klingon.
Yeah.
Like that was cool to watch big man basketball.
Gatlin Gunn said, I said wasted talent remembers the John Wooden.
David T., let's talk Raiders now, please. You know what? You got it. I also, Brian Avila, you in right now, $20 Venmo for a chance to win $130 here on the Raiders Report. And friendly reminder, if you send in a $20 Venmo, you're also in for a chance to win a Raiders Report jersey, which we are going to do at the very, very end of today's show. All right, y'all. So coming up here on our next episode is around the Raiders potentially trading up.
Venom Sosa.
Get an extra first-round pick. What's up? What's up, Venom? We're going to talk about the Raiders potentially trying to trade up to get an extra first-round pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. This show is presented by 8 Sleep, Cold Open. Cool.
Let's do it.
We're ready to go. You guys ready to get this thing going? If you are, I was going to say you get spams on. We've already done that. You know what? F it. Show Zon some love. Show Venom a little bit of love. Can I get some what's-ups down in the comments? Coming up, let's talk a little trades here with the Las Vegas Raiders. Did you know the Raiders tried trading up with the Miami Dolphins for pick 21? They offered the Dolphins pick 44, 77, and 121. Miami said no. If you did not know that, then you definitely need to subscribe to the Raiders Report, because coming up here on today's stream, I'm going to be looking at 5 trades the Las Vegas Raiders could do to help them get back up for another first-round pick in this year's draft. Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Renz here, host of the Raiders Report, and today's show is sponsored by 8 Sleep. How many people out there think sleep is important? I know I do. How many people slept last night? I know I did. Hopefully everyone did as well. And if you're like, you know what, I need to improve my sleep, I don't think there's anything wrong in admitting that. I think everyone probably could improve their sleep at least a little bit. Go to 8sleep.com/chatsports for $20 off the pod cover. That link's going to be available to y'all down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. So coming up here, I got 5 trades that the Raiders could make to get an extra first-round pick in the 2024 NFL Draft. Last week on this show, I talked about a story that one of my friends who's with the Miami Dolphins relayed to me, and I discussed in great length. And if anybody wants to go check out the show, you can go check it out. I dropped the video, like I said, on Thursdays last week, so please don't be afraid to go look at it. But according to a source, the Raiders, they tried to trade up with the Miami Dolphins. The Dolphins said no, and the reason is the Raiders are trying to get another first-round pick. Based on some connections that I have, the Raiders are trying to do exactly what the Minnesota Vikings did. So the Vikings, They have pick 11. They have pick 23. They made a deal with the Houston Texans, and now they're going to be able to use those picks to help go up and get a franchise quarterback because they're kind of in that same area that the Raiders are. So if Las Vegas knows that, okay, that's what Minnesota's working with here, I believe from a competitive advantage standpoint, you want to try to get the exact same thing. That way you can compete in a world that, hey, Jayden Daniels is there at number 3. Hey, this quarterback that I want is available there at number 4. Then you have the draft capital to go up and get your guy. So this was the trade that Miami said no to. And again, if you don't know the whole story, go back and watch the entire show where I explain it in great more depth. But for the Raiders to ask for this and for the Dolphins to say no, what the trades that you're going to see are going to be kind of similar to this overall, but like the Raiders are clearly trying to do something to get themselves a franchise quarterback. And I'm not even saying, like, if you make this trade and you have pick 13 and 21, that doesn't mean that it's all in for Jayden Daniels. It could also very well mean something along the lines of, well, what if we take Michael Penix Jr. at 13, and then what if we're hoping for a J.C. Latham, a Quinion Mitchell, somebody at offensive tackle or corner to fall to us at pick number 21. I think it's a very likely scenario. My question to the nation out there is, in your opinion, should the Raiders try to get another first-round pick? And you know what? I am going to make this the pinned comment on today's show. This is the most important question that you can answer on today's episode, sponsored by 8 Sleep. Should the Raiders try to get another first-round pick? I'm not saying you keep 13, but you're trying to add another one to your arsenal. But you're going to have to give up some stuff in order for that to happen. Give me a yes. Give me a no. My answer coming up after this YouTube ad break. Yes, if it helps the Raiders get their franchise quarterback, if I haven't made it clear to y'all at this point in this season that I want a franchise QB, then I've done a shitty job as the host of this show. And I'll also say that if the answer is yes, if the Raiders also know that, hey, you got like 16 days to address your other needs before the NFL draft happens. So, like, if this ends up going down and you know you have to move on from some of those other picks in that mix because you're hoping to get Jayden, you're hoping to get a Michael Penix Jr., then I am hoping that this team goes out and they sign a Dalton Reisner. Maybe you go out and you sign a Xavier Howard. Maybe you go out and sign an Adoree Jackson. There's still other needs that you would have to do. But, like, let's face it, if the Raiders pull this off and if the Raiders are able to get that extra first round, there are 2 people in mind. Option A and plan A always will be Jayden Daniels. If you didn't see the IG live of Malik Neighbors and Daniels, and, you know, Malik's kind of like, hey, I think he's going to get paired up with his buddy. Everybody knows that the Raiders want him. It's just, are they going to be able to do it? The other option, and I do think that this is smart for the Silver and Black because I've always said it on this show, good teams have a plan B. Here's your plan B. If you know you can't get up and go get a guy like Jayden, then what I think that the Raiders are doing by trying to accumulate that other first-round pick is saying, okay, if we're unable to get our guy, I don't want to leave this draft without a franchise quarterback. Then you still have the ability to go get a Michael Penix Jr. So coming up here on today's show, I got 5 trades that the Raiders could make based on the source that I got saying the Raiders try to trade up with the Miami Dolphins. If this is something that we know, who are some teams that they could potentially trade up with? I got 5 teams, 5 trades, and I'm going to tell you why those teams would also make the deal because, let's face it, it does take 2 to tango. Now, it's been a while since I've tangoed in my bed. Probably it's because it's just always super warm there. I bet you if I got the 8 Sleep, cooled off a little bit. Just saying, Alex, we might have to really get hooked up here. Go to 8sleep.com/chatsports for a better sleep. And to me, at the end of the day, sleep is the most important thing that you could get. On days that I have a bad night's sleep, I wake up, I'm less productive at work, I don't feel like going to the gym. Nights that I get a good night's rest, it's kind of amazing how quick I'm able to pop up out of bed. But the reason why that I love 8 Sleep is because it has totally stopped my night sweats. I like to snuggle with my dog Chuck, but homie is like a heater. Thanks to 8 Sleep, I don't wake up sweating and get a better night's sleep. If you watch today's show and you're like, Mitch, how do I get one of those? Well, I'm glad that you asked. Go to 8sleep.com/chatsports to get $200 off plus free shipping on the pod cover by 8 Sleep. Invest in the rest you deserve with the 8 Sleep pod. The pod cover will improve your sleep by automatically adjusting your bed's temperature based on your individual needs. The cover can be added to any bed like a fitted sheet and allows you and your partner to cool or warm your side of the bed as low as 55 degrees and up to 110. In addition to keeping you at the perfect temperature all night, the pod also tracks your sleep and health metrics. On average, pod users see their sleep quality improve by 32% after just a month on the pod. So I'm going to say it again in case, I don't know, maybe you weren't paying attention. Go to 8sleep.com/chatsports and get $200 off plus free shipping on the pod covered by 8 Sleep. Invest in the rest you deserve with the 8 Sleep pod. My reasoning, and I'm going to be real with y'all, I've been using this thing like probably the last, 2-3 months. And for those that don't know, Alex and I were moving, and we're moving at the end of the month, and we've started to pack up all of our stuff. I don't have my 8 Sleep pod anymore, and over the last 3, 4, 5 days, I've really noticed my sleep being impacted because I do sweat a lot. Hell, I sweat when I eat. I sweat when I do this show. I do it all the time, which is why I have to wear makeup or else I'd be sweating on this bad boy. I miss my 8 Sleep pod. I need to move into our new place, and then I think as soon as I do, you guys are going to see a brand new energized Mitch, that I can guarantee. So coming up here, I got 5 trades that the Raiders could make to help get that extra first-round pick. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in order based on, where the teams are picking. So, the first deal that I got coming up here is with the Los Angeles Rams. They're picking at number 19. And then we're just going to keep on working our way down further and further and further of that first round of this draft. So, the first team that I think the Raiders could potentially trade up with to get that extra first-rounder is the Los Angeles Rams. And at pick number 19, the reason why this makes sense for Los Angeles and why this one could potentially go down, it's the Rams have not been afraid to trade their first-round picks. In fact, the last time that Los Angeles, which I guess technically may even be St. Louis at this point, the last time that the Rams had a first-round pick was 2016. They selected Jared Goff. Think about how long ago 2016 was. That's what the Rams think about first-round picks. Aaron Donald retired. Maybe the Raiders could throw in a Byron Young as a cherry on top. And I know this. This trade is going to upset a lot of people, but hear my reasoning on it. So, the Raiders get pick number 19. The Rams, you receive 44, 77, and 112. If that's what the Raiders offered Miami, then to get up to 19, you're going to have to pay a little bit more. One of the biggest needs, I think probably the biggest need for the Rams is Byron Young. Some of y'all are like, why would the Rams want Byron Young? What if they had a third-round grade on Byron? Just because you got a new regime, you want to get him out, somebody from Alabama, you insert him, and now you have a little bit of extra depth there to that room. Then I'm going to say Aiden O'Connell. And I know some of you are like, well, Mitch, why would we trade away Aiden O'Connell? You signed Gardner Minshew. If the Raiders are trying to add that first-round pick, the extra first-round pick, it's to go out and get another quarterback. So if you get a Jayden or if you get a Michael Penix Jr., do you really need to have Aiden O'Connell, Gardner Minshew, and then one of those guys? I don't think that you do. I think you move on from one. The one that they would move on from is Aiden. They're not moving on from Gardner. And on top of that, the Rams right now, their backup quarterback, Stetson Bennett, who the Rams don't know when, if he's ever going to return again. So if you're like Los Angeles and you've had some injury concerns with Matthew Stafford, doesn't it make sense to go get yourself a good backup quarterback like Aiden O'Connell? That's trade number 1. Let's go to the other trade. Hey, just because somebody said no does not mean somebody says no twice. We just got to make the picks a little bit better. So here we go. The Miami Dolphins pick 21. Why they would do it? They only have 6 picks in the 2024 NFL Draft, which at one point was the least. Now the Bears have only 4, which is the least amount after making some trades for Keenan Allen and whatnot. Las Vegas already tried to make a deal with the Dolphins. They offered 44, 77, and 121. Miami said no to that. But building through the draft might be smart for the Dolphins, considering the fact that if they do want to give Tua a massive, massive paycheck, right, it might hurt or hinder their ability in future years to be able to go out and bring in top free agents. So that means they have to build in the draft a little bit more. So let's do this. Trade idea number 2. The Miami Dolphins, you get pick 44 and 77. So second-round pick, third-round pick. I'm also going to throw in a second-round pick in 2025, and I am also going to give you Byron Young. The Raiders signed Christian Wilkins. You have Adam Butler, John Jenkins, and because I believe that the one player most likely to be traded this offseason that rocks silver and black right now is Byron Young, based on all the other moves that the Raiders have made, could this be a little bit of a cherry on top? Because if they turn down a 4th-round pick this year, and a 2nd-round pick in next year's draft seems a little bit better, and then a defensive tackle that was taken in 3rd round the year before that, I think this should be enough to get the deal done with Miami. Before I show you my next 3 trades here on the show, I want you to be able to interact with Jeremy Chugs and I. IG, Twitter. We're trying to do a better job, especially And I mean especially in the offseason of being able to interact with our fans on IG, answer all y'all's questions. So I'm at Mitchell Renz 365. Jeremy is at Jeremy Chugs on X and at Jeremy_Chugs on Instagram. Let's go to the Philadelphia Eagles here at pick number 22. To me, Howie Roseman has never been afraid to make a splash. And if you're the Philadelphia Eagles, you got to look at how last season ended, right? I want to say they lost, 8 out of their final 9 games. And because of that, could you see a Philadelphia team that is a little bit eager, a little bit more saying, hey, we got to do something different because what we did last season was not all that great. And to me, the biggest knock on Philadelphia was they didn't have nearly as much depth, okay? When you think about their Super Bowl run that they had the year before, they had a lot of solid depth on defense. Hell, they had some good depth on offense. Then a lot of those players left because they were looking for bigger deals. The Eagles then, at the end of the season, they started out the season strong. That depth started to wear them down as the year went on. If I'm Philadelphia and I look at that, I go, how do I add more depth? How do I have the ability to add more players to this team so what happened last year doesn't happen again? On top of that, you got to try to replace your center, who's arguably the greatest center that has ever played in the NFL, in Jason Kelce. So here's my trade idea with Philadelphia. The Raiders get pick 22. Philadelphia gets pick 44 and 77, and we're throwing in a second-round pick in 2025. So basically, the exact same trade that we offered earlier, but just one less player in Byron Young. This is a deal that I would do. This is a good deal, I think, for the Raiders if they are serious about getting that extra franchise quarterback. Will Philadelphia do it? I don't know. I do think it makes sense for them, though. Let's go to the Dallas Cowboys here at pick 24. If you watched our live show on Tuesday, you'll know that it's been reported that Dallas is in the market for a left tackle. And if they are in the market for a left tackle, could you potentially give them one? And this is going to be a trade that is going to upset a lot of people out there. Hell, I don't even like doing this one, but if I wanted to be able to do this show, I want to be able to show you different trades and different things that it could potentially be. So since Dallas did nothing in free agency, that to me says that they're looking for the draft. You could build through the draft, which I do think might be smart if they want to be able to pay Dak Prescott this offseason. That way he doesn't hit the open market, because if you pay Dak, then you're not going to have as much money next offseason to allocate that to free agency, so you need a little bit more depth. The Cowboys need a left tackle. Could you trade them Kolton Miller? And this is the real-life question here. If I told you this trade ends up going down, and this one scares the hell out of me. The only way that you do this if you're the Raiders, hear me out on this. The only way that you do this is if you're the Raiders is if you're confident in Thayer Munford's ability to play left tackle. And then on top of that, you're going to try to figure out a way to use this pick right here, okay? To use this pick right here to go get yourself a right tackle. Because, if you told me I could get a Amarius Mims at right tackle, and then you put Thayer Munford at left tackle, and then you're able to use potentially this draft pick if, I don't know, pick 13 then on a Michael Penix Jr. to secure your quarterback, that's an option. I am not going to trade Kolton Miller and then just say, F it, we'll figure out the tackle position. That scares the hell out of me. Though, if this is what the Cowboys asked, would you do it? Just something to think about based on value. Kolton Miller and a third-round pick. You get the first-round pick and pick 24 from Dallas. Let's go to the final trade here, and I know what I said in the show. It was trades in the first round. Well, I'm going to cheat here a little bit. Carolina at pick 33. The Panthers do not have a first-round pick this year because they traded it away to the Chicago Bears, who picked number 1. The reason why that I think that this one could end up going down is simply because Carolina only has 6 picks in this year's draft. This has been a team that, let's face it, they're in rebuild mode. They probably want to try to build even more around Bryce Young. They want to try to probably add even more talent to this position. The reason why I threw this one in here is because of, let's face it, if, let's say, a quarterback slides, which I hope that the Raiders don't draft Bo Nix. I've said that multiple times. But if Bo Nix is on the board at 33, could the Raiders potentially do it? If Michael Penix Jr. slides down, I mean, everybody and their brother, if you remember last year, was like, Will Levis, top 2 pick. Will Levis, top 10 pick. What happened? He slid out of the first round. If Michael Penix Jr. is available at pick 33, if you're the Raiders, you pick up the phone and you go, Carolina, what do you want? And if I'm Carolina, I go, give me as many picks as humanly possible. So here's my trade for that one. Raiders get pick 33. You go up and get your quarterback. The Raiders also get a 5th-round pick from Carolina at 142. I should also note that Carolina has another 5th-round pick at 141, which is kind of why I think they'd be on board for this. And then Carolina gets 44, 77, and 112. For a team that needs more draft capital, for a team that needs to build, this is not a bad idea for Carolina. However, you can probably only do one of these trades, right? And when I do these shows, I do it based on that. Not that I would make every trade that I just showed you. It's more of, let's have an adult conversation. If you don't like a trade, all good. There's some of these trades that I made that I don't really like. But it's based on, I do want to offer you and show you different ideas that could potentially happen instead of just always just showing just picks, because that to me gets boring. So out of the 5 trades that I showed you, which one is your favorite? And we're going to roll through these. If it's number 1, I want you to type 1 down below. If it's the one with the Miami Dolphins, hey, give me a number 2. What about the Philadelphia Eagles? Type 3. If it's the trade involving the Dallas Cowboys and Colt Miller, type 4, though I will admit this is my least favorite out of them all. And then trade number 5 with the Carolina Panthers. And there's some interesting ones that you could potentially do in that mix from a situational standpoint. If you told me Michael Penix Jr. is on the board at pick number 33, then I'm going to take the Carolina deal because I think it helps out the Raiders the most. But I'll also say, like, that deal with the Rams, if you told me that we were able to, and again, moving on from Aiden sucks, moving on from Byron Young is what it is, but if you told me we had pick 13 and pick 19, that value is more important than the Vikings having 11 and 23, and I think then that Raiders team is the front runner to be that team that trades up if one of those quarterbacks, Jayden Daniels, does fall to number 3. Because right now you're in a situation where if I'm the New England Patriots at 3, if I'm the Arizona Cardinals at 4, I look at Minnesota's and I go, well, they got 11 and 23. You only have 13. I want picks this year. Because of that, the Raiders are working behind the 8 ball with Minnesota. If you can figure out a way to get extra picks on top, which is why I'm very confident they called the Miami Dolphins in the first place, that's just putting you ahead of Minnesota, which right now I would say is the top team to trade up for a QB this year. So just like we did earlier in the show with Zahn, we're going to do another one here with Ira Jackson, who sent in a $500 Venmo yesterday, which is just a mind-blowing thing.
As long as it takes Mitch to put on the last jersey is how long you have to spam Ira Jackson.
Okay.
Who's going to spam it the most? Get down on it. Get down on it. Get down on it. Get down on it. Let's see. Oh, wow. They're coming in now. They're coming in hot. Ira. A little white action. Don't have a lot of white jerseys.
But I had to wear this one.
All right.
Shout out to L. Davis. Also,
I think the person who's easily spammed the most, maybe not easily. Easily is a rough word for that. Maybe who I think is spammed it the most.
Okay.
Ron Raspberry.
Ron Raspberry, you in. You in. Also, speaking of people that are in, let me see if anybody else is in. I also see Scott Eckert is in. I see Luis Avina is in. And then Luis Rodriguez is in. So we got 2 races today. For those that do not know, $20 Venmo gets you in both of these. So you're going to have a chance to win the money, which right now is $160. On top of that, you're going to have an opportunity to win the Raiders Report jersey. So, like, if you win the 50-50, that doesn't mean that you're going to lose the Raiders. Like, the way that I'm going to do it is I'm going to take all the names. So right now we have 16 names for the 50-50 raffle. Then for the Raiders Report jersey, I'm going to take those exact same 16 names.
Plus the 2.
And then put them in for the Raiders Report jersey, plus the 2 names of Wesley and Ron Raspberry. So you're going to have opportunities to win the money and the Raiders Report jersey. The final segment coming up here on today's show is around wide receiver targets for the Silver and Black, because we were talking about it earlier and saw a lot of people down in the comments that said it as well. We're very confident in Devontae and Jacoby. After that, There's a lot of ends. Trey Tucker, high upside, but Christian Wilkerson, DJ Turner, Let's go to Brandon Jasper, Mount Raidermore. Mitch, any chance you get Graff to do a boot Friday? I don't know if I'm going to make him, obviously I'm not going to make him do anything, but I don't think people understand how difficult a boot truly is. Now, like, I might give him the opportunity, like, if he wants to try it, he can, but like Chugs and I did a few boots before we actually did them on camera. Like, we've done a few boots in person, and, you know, shout out to the people that showed up for Super Bowl. We've done a few boots with people.
Still the most wild boot. If you went to the Super Bowl
Guinness
party,
boot.
you know. A dude did a Guinness boot in 24 seconds. I don't know if I could do it.
Dude, that's impressive.
I actually know that I probably could not do it as a Guinness boot as fast as that guy.
I mean, that was an impressive boot.
Guinness is thick.
Again, I think some people probably just know that they can do it, where I know that I can chug a boot. I can't do it fast. I can do it fast compared to the normal person because I've just done it so much now.
Yeah.
But compared to like Chugs, some other people in this office, no, I don't stand a chance. I don't stand a chance. All right, man, we got 615 people here. I see a few more supers, which I think we got one more here from J-Row, and then we can get into the final segment. Saw a mock draft, and it had Marvin Harrison Jr. going number 1.
You saw the wrong mock. Buddy.
I think whoever wrote that eats corn the long way, but what's your thoughts?
I will run a marathon if Marvin Harrison goes number 1.
I think I would run a marathon if anybody outside of Caleb Williams is the number 1 pick. Like, they might as well. If I'm Chicago, I'm already selling Caleb Williams number 1 jerseys. Like, it's a lock, man. Now, don't get me wrong. Like, if I was Chicago, and this, I mean, again, they only have 4 picks, right? If I was the Bears, I would actually entertain the idea, even though Chicago traded for Keenan Allen, even though they have DJ Moore, if you're the Bears and, like, there's still another player that's really high up on your board, I don't think it's Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, I'm not saying he's not high on the board, but it's not as much of a need.
Yeah.
Could you, like, trade up to go get, I also don't know that much about the Bears, but if there's a player, like, that you want, you go up and get him. Though I will admit, Keenan Allen, Marvin Harrison Jr., and DJ Moore would be the best receiver room in the NFL, and I don't know if it's close.
Yeah.
That would be insane.
That would be an insane 1-2. I mean, that would beat the Texans' top 3 right now, I think. And I think they have the best 3-person room in the NFL.
I mean, they're definitely up there. Let me see here.
I mean, what are their 3?
Since free agency, I'd have to look at. All right, so it's definitely not the Bills. The other team that I would say probably gives you a run is Miami, just because of Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, though their next best receiver is Braxton Berrios. So
yeah, it would be.
It's a tough one. It's not the Jets. It's not the Patriots. It's not the Ravens. I mean, T. Higgins, Jamar Chase definitely is in the running there.
Maybe the Seahawks with Metcalf, Lockett, and Smith and Jigba.
Yeah. I think low-key, the Browns with Jerry Jeudy, Amari Cooper, Elijah Moore is sneaky. It's not better, but it's sneaky.
Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison, and then I don't even know. Seeps, who is the Vikings' 3rd wide receiver?
Not the Broncos, not the Chiefs,
and the
3rd
third guy for the Vikings.
Based off of what I'm looking at right now, I would say the team that has the best receiving room in the NFL is probably still Miami. I mean, because I think it's also, what do you value Stephon Diggs at? Like, I don't know if Diggs is still a top 10 receiver. I don't know. I would actually say he's not a top 10 receiver. So it's like, now if Diggs is motivated and can actually, he really fell off at the end of last year.
Rams would be up there too with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp.
Cooper's got to stay healthy.
And I think they got Robinson.
I don't think they have him anymore.
No?
I don't think so. They have DeMarcus. I thought you meant Allen Robinson.
Oh, yeah.
I was gonna say he is not on the team.
Yeah, so
There's some interesting names. Then even the Niners with Brandon Ayuk, Debo Samuel,
yeah.
Lockett, Metcalf, and Jigba. A lot of talent there. Before we get into this next segment, we're talking so much about receivers because we're about to look at some receivers that the Raiders could draft. I actually got to go take a quick pee. I literally think it's because I did that beer bong. It's the only thing I can think of. I know, dude. I'm just telling you. I think it's the only thing that I can think of. I got to take a pee.
You got to get that bladder checked.
Yeah, you're probably not wrong.
Let me know down in the comment section, who do you think has the best receiver room in the NFL right now? I think it might be the Texans. They got to be up there. The Rams would be up there. I don't know. And it also depends on who gets who in the NFL draft this coming up. I don't know if the Jets get somehow a top receiver in this draft. I really like Garrett Wilson, adding another really good receiver to that room. Navman said, no question it's the Eagles. They added Devontae Parker, so it's A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and Parker. Seahawks are good. Dolphins are good. But Jaylen Waddle just scares me. Mitch was saying, oh, yeah, Stephon Diggs scares you because you don't know what he's going to be. Jaylen Waddle scares me because he can't stay healthy. Jaylen Waddle, throughout his career in the NFL, has really not been able to stay healthy. Abby says, Raiders three-headed monster. Until Trey Tucker does something, I don't think you can call it a three-headed monster. You have to wait until this season. Jacoby Myers is good. Devontae Adams, top 5 receiver in the league. Yeah, Tank Dell, Nico Collins, and Stephon Diggs is nice. So, Bengals and Vikings are just up there. Obviously they have Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, 2 of the top. I would say they're also top 5 in the league.
All right, I'm back. Thanks for waiting. Appreciate it.
Niners, too. We didn't even say the Niners. Debo,
I did.
Ayuk, and Juwan Jennings.
All right, the last name that I got in the duck race is Luis Rodriguez.
That's a sneaky good 3, too, with Ayuk and because Debo's really versatile. You have Brandon Ayuk.
Kalen Newsome in.
You think the Titans?
Kenny Hoffman in.
Oh, the Titans.
Anthony Green in.
The Titans receiver room kind of sucks.
Salvador Lucas in.
You have DeAndre Hop. Huh? D-Hop's nice. And then, I guess I didn't think of Calvin Ridley.
Yeah, I think it's a good. Traylon Burks is the number 3 there, but
yeah,
Ridley's solid. It's not the best receiver room in the NFL.
D-Hop hasn't been the same since he got traded. Bill O'Brien made the right move.
Now I definitely know. Definitely know that there's some
David
bias
Johnson
going
could
on.
have been something.
He could have been. He wasn't, though.
In fantasy, though.
There was one year he was really good. He was really good that one year, man. That year for the Cardinals, it was unbelievable. And then he was horrible. Coming up, let's look at 10 receivers that the Raiders could select in the 2024 NFL Draft. Jugs, you ready?
I'm ready.
This one is Prize Picks. Mm-hmm. All right, y'all. Coming up, let's get into this one right now here on the show. Raider Nation, I'm Mitchell Renz, host of the Raiders Report. And coming up on today's show, we got the top 10 wide receivers I want the Raiders to select in the 2024 NFL Draft. Now, I got to always say, because this is not a ranking of the top 10 receivers in the NFL Draft, this is simply based on which players I want Tom Telesco Antonio Pierce to target the most. The way that these rankings are based on is overall skill set, fit with the Raiders and projected draft costs. There are certain players that I like that the Raiders can get in round 5 and 6 that are going to be higher based on just because I like the idea of the Raiders getting a receiver later in the rounds instead of you using a pick earlier on in the draft. However, this is a very split bag because I do think there's a lot of people out there that are very confident in this Raiders wide receiver room, which I can make a lot of arguments for. You got arguably the best guy in Davante Adams. Jacoby Myers is one of the best wide receiver 2s in football. Then you got Trey Tucker in the slot is how I would sell this as the good. The bad would be Davante Adams is over 31. Jacoby Myers is a good, reliable wide receiver 2. Trey Tucker is still very unknown. Christian Wilkerson, DJ Turner, let's face it, not a lot of confidence in those guys. And if, God forbid, if one of your starters, one of the guys' pictures go down, then you definitely need to add another receiver to this room. If you're looking, though, for Raiders draft videos, because it's insane to say that the NFL draft, it's like 2 weeks away, right? Like, it is so close, I can almost taste it. And I'm going to be making videos for top 10 targets at each position. If you want to see corner, linebacker, offensive tackle, running back, all of those videos are already made, and they're going to be in the description of this video right here. So go check them all out, see which players I want the Raiders to target. Let's get this thing going. We're going to go from 10, work our way down to 1. Coming in here at number 10, receiver from Oregon, it's Troy Franklin. And Franklin is a very fun and intriguing prospect for me to watch on tape because he just is a high yards after the catch type of dude, right? Like tall, linear, good speed, got a quick release. Some people compare him to Deshaun Jackson, which I can kind of see some of the comparisons there. I will say the below average strength, I do think that he could struggle against some physicality, and based on the type of offense that I think that the Raiders want to run, they're probably going to be looking for somebody that is a little bit more of a physical receiver. But that high yards after the catch average, the ability to open things up underneath for his teammates is something that is very important. 6'3", 190-pound Oregon Duck who had 81 grabs, close to 1,400 yards, 14 touchdowns. I mean, this guy was a highlight reel. However, I think you'd probably have to take him at pick 44. I don't want the Raiders to take a receiver in round 1. I don't want the Raiders to take a receiver in round 2. So to me, you probably have to hope that he's available in round 3, and I just don't think that that's going to happen. Let's go to number 9 here on my list. It is Roman Wilson from the Michigan Wolverines. I had a source that was at the Senior Bowl tell me the Raiders were very impressed by Wilson, but that really shouldn't surprise anybody considering the fact that he was probably the best receiver that was at the Senior Bowl. He's got explosive speed. That acceleration really helps him get off the jump, and he does have that ability to stretch the field. He's not a great blocker, but he is dangerous in open space. So if you wanted to be able to say, okay, I'm looking for another slot receiver that I can add competition to with a guy like Trey Tucker, Roman Wilson, I actually think probably wins that battle. I think Wilson is a better receiver than Tucker, though Tucker is probably the better special teams player. So you add Roman Wilson in at the slot, and you let Trey Tucker kind of take on the DeAndre Carter role of, hey, I want you to concentrate a little bit more on special teams, which is something that the Raiders, I do think, still have to figure out since all these new kickoff return rules and Carter's not back yet. Something to think about. Yeah, the numbers aren't great for Wilson, but that's more due to the fact that the style of offense that Michigan ran. And the only player that made Quinyon Mitchell at the Senior Bowl look human was Wilson. In the one-on-ones, Wilson won some of those reps. Everybody else that Quinyon Mitchell went up against at the Senior Bowl, Quinyon worked him. Wilson, though, held his own. And that is something that I do think is very important, where if I'm going to target him, it's going to be in round 3. But because of Wilson's success against Mitchell at the Senior Bowl, I could actually see him maybe going even a little bit higher. So this is the pinned comment because at the end of the day, this is what this episode is about here. Which round should the Raiders draft a wide receiver in? I don't think they should draft a receiver in round 1. I don't think they should draft a receiver in round 2. And coming up after this YouTube ad break, I'm going to tell you where I like to target receivers in my mock drafts. That sweet special spot for me is 4 and 5. If you're looking for a legit guy that you can have say, okay, come on this roster, giggity, and be a legit impact player in year 1, you're probably going to be looking in round 4. Round 3 is even a little bit rich for my blood because this team has other needs. There's some other good talent a little bit later on in the draft, and in fact, one of the players that I like in the later rounds is coming up next here on the show. His name is Anthony Gold, the receiver from Oregon State, and This guy is electric. He's fun to watch. He can make people miss, and if he's in open space, you don't want to be one-on-one with him. He's got legit 4.39, 40 speed to stretch the field. He's shiftiness to uncover against tight man coverages from the slot. So, again, this is a dude that I think you probably try to put in the slot to compete with Trey Tucker here a little bit. But the biggest reason why I added him to this show is his ability in special teams. If you draft Anthony Golden, if you're able to get him in round 7, which is where I would target him, you get him in round 7, you put him as your kick returner, you put him as your punt returner, you let him handle all those duties, and you say, hey, Trey Tucker, all I need you to do is just be a backup in case we're going to have Amir Abdullah. He's going to be able to fill in the special teams role as well. And Trey, I need you to worry about being a receiver because I do think Trey Tucker is a more talented receiver than Anthony Gold. Anthony Gold, though, might be the better special teams player, and it is something that teams need to consider. And if, God forbid, Trey Tucker were to go down, I do think it's a very easy type of replacement for Tucker that you would be able to have on your fourth-string wide receiver list. This also helps you have the ability to potentially move on from DJ Turner on your 53-man roster and add another player that you'd be able to keep to another probably important position. Let's go to number 7 here, and it's a player that I'm starting to like more and more that I watch him. And I'm curious if I do this show in another week, I might even bump this guy up. Taj Washington from USC. His toughness fits what the Raiders are looking for. This guy makes contested catches. I'll admit he has to make some of those contested catches because I don't know if he's all that great of a route runner, but another dude that if you're looking for an explosive athlete that you'd be able to put in the punt and kick returner game, plus not many receivers at his size, I'd be confident that could be a gunner, but because when he plays, he's not afraid to hit people, and he likes to run block. Dude, like on tape, somebody that's this size should not be as good of a blocker as what he is because I think pound for pound, he might be one of the best run blockers that I've seen at the receiver position. For 5'10", 175 pounds, this guy wants to be a competitor, and I think he'd be a hell of a competition next to somebody like Trey Tucker because this is somebody who wants to put their nose in the action. And last season had 59 grabs, over 1,000 yards, put up better numbers than Brendan Rice. Though I do think Rice's talent and skill set probably is a better fit in the NFL. But there's going to be a team that gets Taj Washington in round 6 is where I would consider potentially drafting him for the Raiders at pick 208 instead of waiting for like 223 or 229 because of that ability in special teams. If you don't want to replace DeAndre Carter, I do think Taj Washington is a name that just continues to grow and grow on me the more tape I watch on him. Before I get into my top 6 receivers that I want the Raiders to target, I do got to give a shout out to today's sponsor, Prize Picks. $100 deposit match if you go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. And if anybody out there likes daily fantasy sports made easy, well, then this is the perfect sponsor for you. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with NBA, NHL, and MLB entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Prize Picks is really simple to play. I can make my picks and submit my entry in less than 60 seconds. Quick withdrawals, easy gameplay, and an enormous selection of players and stat types or make Prize Picks the #1 daily fantasy sports app. If you want to see the picks that I'm rolling with for golf, which I think this is just another way to show you that you can do so much on Prize Picks. And I know a bunch of the guys here are excited about the Masters, and they're excited about golf, and I'm not a big golfer, though. I have been trying to improve my game. I've been playing, I try to go to the golf simulator at my apartment complex at least once a month, just hit a few golf balls. That way in the summertime, I can maybe at least go on the course one time. But bottom line is this. I don't give a rat's ass about golf. Guess what I will care about? This and the money going in my pocket. So if you're like me, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. And at the end of the day, I like competition. I like being able to watch something. I like being able to keep my mind occupied. And if you're like me, well, then listen up one more time here. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Shout out to Prize Picks, America's #1 daily fantasy sports app, for hooking up the nation. Win big money. Withdraw your winnings. Shout out to Prize Picks. Let's go to number 6 here. It's Jalen Polk from Washington. And I know there's some mixed decisions on who's the top receiver after Rome Odunze on Washington. to me, the guy that I think is going to be better in the NFL is Polk. And he's got that NFL body type that is equipped with his jump ball talent, so I know that he's going to be good in the red zone. And I just don't think he has a high ceiling, but I don't think that he has that low of a floor. And to me, he's a safe player that if you're like, I got to add depth, and right now for the Raiders, I want to be able to add depth. That's exactly what Polk's going to be. He's got to be able to prove to me that he's got better burst and suddenness to like create some of those separations. And I think he got open a lot more at Washington because Penix was one of the best quarterbacks in college. They have one of the best offensive lines, arguably the best offensive line in all of college football. And was he the third? Was he the second option? I know he wasn't the first behind Rome. To me, though, when he's like coming out of college, if he really projects the right way, he's a more talented Jacoby Myers. But he's got to be in the right like situation. He's a bigger receiver. He's not super fast. He's a possession guy, 6'2", 204 pounds. Had a nice amount of catches last season for the Huskies with 9 touchdowns. To me, this is a really good wide receiver 3 to be able to compete with Trey Tucker. And then in this situation, I might even argue then that Tucker's probably would end up being the guy that would handle a lot more of your special teams roles. Let's go to number 5. And this might be a name that a lot of y'all might not know about, but if you want to watch some fun tape, Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky might have some of the best. Malachi Corley, from Western Kentucky, might have some of the best tape out there. Big physical player that was used in college, kind of like a Deebo Samuel. And Deebo, to me, is one of these players that I do think the NFL might try to find and might try to go out and get that replica because he's big, he's physical, and he is an average route runner. Like, he's got the concentration problems. He's got some of the drop problems as well that when it comes up on tape, you're like, yeah, that wasn't pretty. And a lot of times people really point out the drop issues for the simple fact of it happens right in that moment. But the other things that he did, and when a team puts as much on his shoulders that they did, like this was a dude that's rushing footballs. This guy's catching, like he was this entire offense. Could be a fun gadget player in the NFL, but needs to be in the right system. I'll admit, I don't love the idea of trusting Luke Getsy with a player like this, but it would not surprise me if somebody said, hey, this Malachi Corley guy was drafted in round 4, and he turns out to be a lesser version of a Deebo, but somebody that you can use in a lot of different areas to your game to help just improve, especially he would be a fun player, especially when you get in those hard-to-reach spots in the red zone. Just move him all over the football field, a lot of pre-snap motion, which is something that AP does want to do. Let's go to number 4 here. It's Jermaine Burton from Alabama, and we know that this team has been looking for a field stretcher for quite some time, and they want to be able to add a little bit more vertical speed because you can love Devontae, you can love Jacoby, but let's face it, neither of those guys are field stretchers. And what I also love about him is he might be the best deep ball tracker in this class, where a lot of guys can run fast, but can you catch the football? And at 4.45 40 speed, he reminds me of some of the best center fielders in the MLB where that ball goes up in the air like, man, that's a double, that's in the gap, it might be a triple. And then all of a sudden you're like, how the hell did he get to that ball? Burton's ability to track the football is very impressive to me. His hands are gigantic. He's strong. He's automatic. If that ball is coming to him, he's going to catch this football. I do think he plays a lot bigger than what he is, and that's probably because of that physical toughness that he has. Though the yards after the catch for how good of an athlete that he is, his ability to create in space, it's not really there. To me, when I look at a player that I'm saying like, okay, you want to throw some deep balls to, create some open space, and really create that vertical passing game, if the Raiders draft somebody like a Jayden Daniels, who I think has one of the best deep balls in the game, if you're able to add a Burton, that could be a very dangerous combo later on. I don't know if it would happen because, again, if you take quarterback and then you go wide receiver your first 2 picks, there's still a lot of other needs out there to be had. But Burton's a fun player, and I think it'd be a pretty damn good fit. Now, there's going to be some people that say, well, wait a minute, Mitch. What about a Marvin Harrison Jr.? Remember, I'm doing this based on players that I think the Raiders have an actual chance to get. The only way that you're going to get a Marvin Harrison Jr., a Malik Neighbors, a Rome Odunze, which those are the top 3 receivers in this year's class. I'm not going to put Brian Thomas Jr. in this list because, again, I don't want the Raiders to draft a receiver in round 1. But to me, there is a clear-cut top 3 receivers, and it's those names that I just mentioned. However, I'm always curious of what you guys have to say. I didn't have Justin Jefferson as my number 1 receiver in the year he came out, but guess what? Probably the best receiver that came out in that class, right? Who do you think is the best wide receiver in this draft? And these names are not featured on this video because, again, the only way you're getting them is if you're trading up. And I'm not trading up for anything in the top 10 unless it's a quarterback. So if you think it's Marvin Harrison Jr., Rome Odunze, Malik Neighbors, or if it's somebody else, please let me know down below. My name on this, who I think is the best receiver in this class, is Marvin Harrison Jr., though the tape that I watch on Rome Odunze, if he lands up in the right squad, because a lot of times it's based on fit, I will say to me, the receiver that ends up being the best receiver in this year's class, hold your ears, if the Chargers pick somebody at 5, probably will be the number 1 receiver next to Los Angeles. Some of those other spots, I don't know how good of a fit that some of those guys will be. Let's go to where this really gets interesting, and if I'm the Raiders, I really want them to take a receiver out of these next 3 names here. This guy's coming up, Javon Baker, and another player that the more and more tape you watch on him, the more that you're going to like because he's just a really good player, and it's just a guy that gets open, and it's something that I always write down in my notes of, you know what, this dude might not be the best player in terms of athletic ability, but if you get open, like that needs to be said, right? Like Hunter Renfrow just got open, wasn't an athletic freak. Cooper Kupp, not an athletic freak, just gets open, but he does separate with good routes. He uses his speed, and his change of speed is very important in routes where there's some guys, they can only run one speed when they run a route. Like, that's it. That's all you get. Not Baker. He can really change it up where he's like, imagine a pitcher that's out there that's throwing a 95 fastball, 92 cutter, an 80-mile-an-hour changeup, a 75-mile-an-hour curveball. They're switching up the speed so much, and it's really hard for that batter to kind of time up. When you have a receiver that can do all this stuff too, it makes it really difficult on the defensive back as well. I will say he wins downfield. He can really spring. He can get vertical. His ball tracking skills are impressive. He does struggle with concentration drops, and he's not a great blocker. Those are like my biggest knocks on him. But at 6'1", 210 pounds, it would be a fun player that if you could target him in round 4, some people think that he might go earlier than that. I've also seen that he might go in round 5. To me, Baker could go somewhere between round 3, round 5. I would consider drafting him at pick 112, no higher. Let's go to number 2 here, Malik Washington from Virginia. I am flat out telling you that I heard from a source about 6 weeks ago to 2 months ago that the Raiders were interested in Washington's ability because his production that he put up at Virginia was pretty damn special, posting 100-plus yards in 10 of his final 11 games with a team that, let's face it, did not have a lot of talent around him. He's got soft hands. He's built like a running back. And he's just fun to watch. This is a slot receiver. So, again, a player that's going to go out there and compete with Trey Tucker. I don't really think that he's somebody that you're going to put in special teams necessarily if you're the Raiders. This would be, hey, let's put Malik in at the slot. He did run a basic route tree at Virginia. Could you just because he was at Virginia? But him next to Jacoby Myers, next to Devontae Adams, then you put Trey Tucker in wide receiver 4 situations to stretch the field and put Trey Tucker in at special teams. Makes this offense a little bit better, but it's another dude, not a big guy, 5'8", 195 pounds, but just got open, and got open often. Is it the level of competition? Perhaps. But if you could tell me, hey, we could get him in round 5, round 6, that value that allows us then to get other bigger needs in this year's draft, Malik Washington in round 5, I'm on board for it. So how about this? If you could draft only one receiver, and that name is obviously the name that's about to come up here for me, who should it be? People that watch this show, you might already know my answer because I've kind of said it on past streams and whatnot. But if you were the Las Vegas Raiders and you could only draft one wide receiver, who should it be? The person that I think that it could be and the person that I think that it will be is Brendan Rice from USC. Out of the top 30 visits that the Raiders have had, there is only one, at the time that I'm making this video, one receiver that the Raiders met with on a top 30 visit. His name is Brendan Rice. If you don't know, he is the son of the best receiver to ever play the game in Jerry Rice. And the reason why that I think that he's number 1 on this list is because the physicality, his ability to dominate in the red zone, the fit with the mentality that this Raiders team is going to bring, on top of the fact that I know the Raiders coaching staff, they've been trying to add previous players to then help with the overall coaching ability. I mean, this guy's been getting coached up by Jerry Rice his entire life. And there are some teams that we've talked to from the Combine and from the Super Bowl that there's some teams out there that look at certain players. Like if you come from that family background of They probably know what it takes to make it in the NFL. It's a little bit of a safer pick. I will say he does have trouble gaining, separating from routes underneath just because he's not an incredible athlete. But Brendan Rice, to me, at 6'3", 210 pounds, if you can get him in round 4, I don't really love the idea of taking him in round 3 at pick 77. But if you told me we could get him at round 4, pick 112, I don't think there's a better value, better player, better fit for the Raiders than Rice in round 4 from USC. So one more time here, let's go through our top 10 receivers that I want the Raiders to target in this year's draft. And if you're looking for more of the top guys, Troy Franklin, Roman Wilson, a little bit some of the later round guys, and Anthony Golden, Taj Washington. Jalen Polk is a very intriguing prospect to me, coming in at number 6. Malachi Corley, if you want a lesser version of a Deebo Samuel. Jermaine Burton. And then there's a tier break for me because I just like the idea of getting receivers in 4, 5, round 6, and that's Javon Baker, round 4, Malik Washington, round 5 and 6, Brendan Rice in round 4 to me is the overall best value. And if I miss the player, and this is one thing, these are probably the comments that I like the most from these draft videos that I do. It's based on what players that I miss. Like, what guys should I go do more homework on? Because I'm going to be real with you. I haven't watched tape on every single receiver out there. I haven't watched tape on every single player out there. I write down certain names. I want to watch a little bit on them, and then I pick the guys that I like. That's what happens. So if you're like, dude, you're missing this guy, tell me. I'll go watch more tape on him. But I've watched probably the top 20 receivers. All the top 20 receivers out there I've probably watched. So give me a name if there's somebody that I missed. Please, shout out to all y'all for tuning in. And remember, Jeremy Chuggs and I, we are going to be live for the NFL draft. All 7 rounds, every single pick. Make sure you don't miss it because if they do draft a receiver, we're going to be partying here on the Raiders Report. I guess I should say we're going to be partying as long as it's not like at pick number 13, the Raiders select Brian Thomas Jr. Good player. Don't pick him at 13. I'm not kidding you. If the Raiders took a receiver at pick 13, I would stand up here on this show and I'd say Devontae's getting traded. It'd be the only way that would make sense.
Yeah.
If you took a receiver at 13, legitimately, I'd say, okay, Devontae's about to get dealt.
Yeah,
it would be the only way I could wrap my mind around that decision.
You're trading Devontae for Justin Herbert.
Dude. That would be something. I mean, the Chargers would never do that, but...
Last chance to get in for free for a Raiders Report jersey. Start spamming 93 down in the chat for 93 Nav boy.
Yeah, Ricky Purcell was a name that he's a really good receiver, but somebody that they'd have to take at pick 44, I think. So I picked Troy Franklin over him. Purcell's probably going to go like in the 50s, 60s. That made him a little bit of a tough target for the Raiders. All right, y'all, final chance. So Nabman went wild yesterday. So if you want a chance to get in for our Raiders Report jersey, I need you to spam 93 from Mr. 93 Navman.
I've seen him doing it for the past 30 seconds, and I keep on seeing his name pop up.
Okay.
I'm going to go with I Am Punchy 33.
I Am Punchy 33. You in. Also, I got to add one more person here, Philip Bogert. Mr. Philip Bogert, you're in. So here is your final chance to get in our 50-50 raffle. Remember, $20 Venmo. You get in for a chance to win the money, and you get in for a chance to win a Raiders Report jersey. So we got 21 people in right now, which means winner gets $210. And the names are Philip Bogert, Salvador Lucas, Anthony Green, Kenny Hoffman, Kalen Newsom, Luis Rodriguez, Luis Avina, Scott Eckert, Brian Avila, Lynn Moss, Steve O'Kay, Rick Hand, 93 Nabman, Wes OC, James Gavar, Rustin Long, Ultra VAB, Justin Gilbert, Willie Pfister, Bill Crabtree.
Of course, we were good all the way until the very end.
What?
The last super chat didn't pull from Mr. Fat Ass.
Oh, I recently came into a bunch of money, which is odd because I normally just use a sock. Anyhow, Raiders. That's a good dad. That's not a dad joke, but that's a hell of a joke.
That's funny. I don't care who you are right there.
At first, I was like, I recently came into a bunch of money, which I was like, all right, that's honestly congratulations, which is odd because I usually come into a sock. That's a hell of a joke. That's almost as good and kind of in the same line of the joke Abjin told me.
Good joke. I liked it.
Here we go. We got 500 people here. Final refresh on my phone. And I don't have anything else, so that means winner gets $210. This is only the first race. I should just tell you that. And then the next race is going to have 24 people in it. And that's going to have Wesley again, Ron Raspberry, and I'm Punchy 33. So we got 2 duck races coming up here on the show. And then as soon as I get done with this live stream, I am then going to hop off. And then I am going to send all those people for tomorrow for our Skype call. Not Skype, Zoom call. I'll send you all the details, all that kind of good stuff. That'll be as soon as this live show is done. So I know there's a lot of people out there waiting. A lot of people been getting the details. I'll send you all the details as soon as I get done with the show. I wanted to do it yesterday, but Nabman, Ira, Zon, and a bunch of other crazy mother efforts from this stream had other plans for me. So blame them. You ready? Winner gets $210. Let's get this thing going. 3, 2, wait. Add Zach Martin. He just got it in at the buzzer. Just got it in at the buzzer. Winner now gets $220. I'm not taking. Nobody else is getting in. Nobody else. 3, 2, 1. Run it. And here we go. The Navman. And then Rick Hand. The most egregious thing on this race is the paddles turn colors.
Yeah.
Why? What makes it turn colors?
Because you're adding blue. Like blue and yellow make a different color.
So blue and purple make green, or blue and green make purple.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. I can't tell if you're serious.
Mm-hmm.
So blue and red make purple? That actually might check out. What if that's actually the truth? Nah, because that means blue and green can't make purple. Or does it?
Blue and green makes purple.
So you're telling me red and blue also make purple?
No, red and blue makes purple.
I will say this, because they're all turning purple.
Willie Pfister!
Oh, wow, Willie Pfister. Probably. I don't know. I legitimately don't know who just won. Scott! Scott with the win. Hang on a second here.
Yeah, yellow and blue make green.
Hi, Dana. I'm doing a show right now. Can I call you when I get done? Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. That's our realtor, dude. Oh, man.
Dude, that's our realtor.
Well, she's like, I got some info for you on the place that you're going to move into. And right now we're applying to get approved. So we'll see. We'll see.
That's our realtor.
Damn, brutal. All right, so who won? Scott? Who gets the butthole pick?
That would be Ultra VAB. That was a close one, though.
Dude, I'll tell you what. That one came down to the Warrior. Though, I am now seeing, what's today's date? Yep. Okay. Yeah, I legitimately can't find Scott's name in this. And now I found Scott. Okay. I'll also say that I am seeing now Ultra VAB put in an extra 20. So I missed that Ultra, so I owe you $20. So 220 goes to Scott. Congrats. Hang on here. And then Ultra VAB, I owe you $20.
Brother.
Ultra
VAB, brother.
Ultra, that's on me, bro.
All right. So did you send me the new list?
Good news. We got approved. So we're good. That's what that call was.
That's awesome.
Alex just called me. Big win. Big win. All right, so that means now we got this other race here. which I'm going to send you these names. So it's basically just the names that you did, just with Wesley again, Ron, and then I'm Punchy. Oh, man. All right, so this race now is for
the jersey.
This is for the jersey. Scott, can you confirm in the chat that you got it? I know you just commented to me on Venmo that you got it, but Scott, if you could tell everybody down in the chat that you got it, that would be much, much appreciated. Here we go. Thrash, Ron, good, not good enough to make my top 10. Wesley.
What's up, brother?
All right, y'all. Winner of this gets a Raiders Report jersey. Now, the way that I usually do it is if you already have a jersey, then I'll send you a jersey of your choice. Obviously, work with me a little bit. If you don't have a jersey, well, then you can get your jersey here. And since we filled out all the numbers 0 to 99,
special teams,
you can get any jersey that you want.
Special plays, special players.
You can get any jersey that your heart desires. You ready?
Tuesday.
You ready? And I'm going to try to figure out, like, if Ira and Zahn, which, again, Ira, Zahn, you guys sent in 500. So did Navman. Like, Navman, I got to get in contact with you. Like, I got to get you a jersey. So, Navman, you can message me on Venmo. If you want literally, like, 93 and for it to say Navman, I can do that. Zahn and Ira, you guys already have so many jerseys, so just if you want something else, just kind of keep me in the loop on that. But every time somebody does spend 500, if they don't want a jersey, then we do something like this. So just keep that in mind as well. All right, here we go. Ready?
I'm ready.
Robert said, are you sending out the previous 1 to 99 to us? If you want your jersey, Robert, yes. I've already sent out a few. So if anybody that already has a jersey wants me to send it, I'll send them out. Chugs and I will sign it, and we'll send it to you. Just let me know. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Winner gets a Raiders Report jersey. I'm rocking an L. Davis right now, which I haven't said yet. Congratulations to my guy, L. Davis, a.k.a. Mercedes.
Oh.
New dad.
Oh, wow.
I got a picture of the baby over the weekend.
What happened to his old dad?
Oh, that's a good joke. It's a cute kid. No, I don't.
Yeah, he is. I saw him at the event.
Adorable kid. He's adorable. Willie! Phil Crabtree. That's devastating.
Oh, Graf is in the chat. What's up, Graf?
Right now we have Wesley, Ultra VAB, and it's only between... Oh, VAB.
Oh.
Dude, right now Wesley is easily in the lead. The question is, will he drop the egg? Or will somebody come sprinting up from behind? Oh, man! Phillip Bogaerts!
Stunting on them.
Mr. Phillip Bogaerts for the win. For the win.
I am Punchy. Those are eggs. It's not ice cream.
Yeah, it's eggs. So we got 93, Navman, and then...
And Scott. Oh, that's funny. He won one.
I mean, today, Scott's the big winner. Not only does Scott get $220, he also gets a butthole pick.
From Graf.
You don't want that. Graf's pretty hairy, dude. He's also like, I feel like as soon as you turn 40, like if you were 30, if there was a chance, like if you were 39, you didn't have any butthole hair, as soon as you turn 40, it's just like instant.
Amazon
Prime. Amazon Prime.
All right, and speaking of Graf, he'll be with us
on
here
Friday.
On Friday for our happy hour show. Maybe we could come up with a couple fun segments that y'all can do. Like maybe one segment that y'all can do together or something.
Yeah, I think what I'll end up doing, and Graf, I'll talk and we'll figure out like what time you should get here, because I think the way that we'll do it is I'll try to get our segments done, and then Graf will join the show. So if we go live at 4 p.m. Eastern time, let's try to get like 2 segments done by like 4 o'clock our time, and then it'll just be like the last hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever, of just shenanigans, shit talking, Raiders football.
We will shenanigan.
Yes, we will. All right, y'all. From me, from my man Jeremy Chuggs, and for all of y'all that are expecting an email from me after the show, I am going to do it. We're going to get that Zoom call stuff set up. Appreciate all y'all for tuning in. See you guys Thursday, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, here on the Raiders Report.